Chapter 3867. Answer me. You are so nice to Bing Changtian and his daughter. Why are you so mean to me? What did I do wrong? Can you tell me? Princess Huifeng looked at the group of people and asked. Bing Changtian glanced at the group of elders and reclusive antiques who were speechless. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. He looked at Princess Huifeng and said, You did wrong by colluding with Qin Feiyang. That's right. As the eldest princess of the Fire Phoenix clan, you actually colluded with our enemy. You are a disgrace to the Feng people. Do you know that? Originally, I wanted to give you a chance to turn over a new leaf by asking you to face the wall and reflect on your mistakes. But I didn't expect you to be so stubborn. The group of elders and reclusive antiques immediately took the opportunity to attack Princess Huifeng. Haha, Princess Huifeng laughed. These were her clansmen. The people she had been protecting were actually such a group of people? How sad. You have gone too far. Dai Fuku clenched his fists. Did I touch your sore spot? Are you angry now? Bing Runing sneered. It's not worth it, but I'm sure the Feng people have nothing to miss. Princess Huifeng shook her head. Then where are you going? Are you going to join Qin Feiyang? I think so. You have always colluded with him. It's normal for you to join him. Maybe you have wanted to betray the Feng people for a long time. You just couldn't find a suitable excuse. After all, if you leave without a reason, you will be labeled as a traitor. But it's different now. You all put on a pitiful look and put all the blame on us. It's as if you were forced to do this. Even if you go and seek refuge with Qin Feiyang now, no one will say anything about you. Sister, you are really good at acting. Bing Runing said with a mocking smile. Bing Runing, you're courting death. Dai Fuku couldn't hold himself back any longer. With a roar, he activated the space-time law's ultimate profundity and charged at Bing Runing. Bing Runing's expression changed, and she quickly hid behind Bing Changtian. Bing Changtian thought, now that you have a Dominator divine weapon, what are you afraid of? Yeah, I have a sovereign weapon. What am I afraid of? Bing Runing came back to her senses and took a step forward. The frost sparrow sword appeared in her hand and shone with earth-shattering sharpness. Daifuku's ultimate profundity of space-time shattered on the spot. What's the situation? Dragons, Qilins, humans, and sea beasts all rushed out upon hearing the commotion. Isn't that Princess Huifeng? Why are they fighting? When they saw the situation at the Feng people's side, their faces were filled with bewilderment. Strange. Why is the frost sparrow sword in Bing Runing's hands? The white-bearded old man mumbled. Qi Shaoyan glanced at Princess Huifeng and Daifuku, then at Bing Runing and the others. A smile crept onto his face as he said, Just wait. There's a good show to watch. On the other side, Long Chen stood at the peak of the mountain and looked at the Feng people thoughtfully. Soon, he shook his head with a smile and turned to look at a young man beside him. It was a young man in golden clothes. His aura was extremely powerful. It was the first prince of the dragons. Have you heard of this saying? Long Chen asked with a smile. Ah, the first prince of the dragons looked at him suspiciously. Even the evils of the heavens can be defied. The evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to bear. Long Chen smiled faintly. What do you mean? The first prince of the dragons was confused. Why did he suddenly say such a thing? Just wait and see. The Feng people are about to undergo a great change. Long Chen chuckled and then looked at Princess Huifeng silently. After spending decades together in the Tianzhong Divine Treasure, he knew Princess Huifeng quite well. This woman was very responsible and had a forgiving heart. However, everyone had their own bottom line. If this bottom line was exceeded, then even a little sheep would become a terrifying beast. And now, the Feng people were obviously challenging Princess Huifeng's bottom line. Looking at Daifuku again. At this time, He had completely gone crazy. His eyes were red. He stared at Bing Rinning with a murderous aura. Bing Rinning's murderous intent was also aroused. Wasn't this a good opportunity to get rid of these two people? She looked at Daifuku and said, "A little follower dares to attack me. If I don't kill you today, how can the Feng people establish themselves in the Sky Cloud realm in the future?" Then she held the Frost Sparrow sword and slashed at Daifuku. Princess Hoofing shook her head and looked at Bing Rinning and the group of old antiques. She sighed and said, "The Feng people want to establish themselves in the Sky Cloud realm with a group of people like you? Wishful thinking." Hearing this, everyone was furious on the spot. But at this time, Princess Hoofing looked at the Frost Sparrow sword and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, I was wrong." "What do you mean? Why is she apologizing to the Dominator Divine Weapon?" Those who didn't know were surprised, including Bing Changtian and the others, seeing that Daifuku was about to be killed by the Frost Sparrow sword. The sword suddenly stopped. "Frost Sparrow sword, what are you doing? Kill him for me." Bing Rinning was stunned and immediately shouted, "Get lost!" The Ice Sparrow sword coldly shouted, and a terrifying divine aura emerged. Bing Rinning screamed and was sent flying. Her entire body was covered in blood in an instant. What's going on? Everyone was surprised. The Frost Sparrow sword betrayed her and hurt her master Bing Rinning, especially the people of the Feng people. Their faces were full of shock. "Do you really admit your mistake?" The Frost Sparrow sword spoke. "Yes." Princess Woofing nodded. "That's right. With your ability, you can totally become the new Feng Ho of the Feng people. As for the current Feng Ho, she has no vision and no foresight. It's not that I look down on her, but even a clown is better than her." The Frost Sparrow sword smiled disdainfully and said a few words of advice like an elder. Then it landed in front of Princess Hoofing. "The new Feng Ho," Princess Hoofing murmured and shook her head with a smile. "I didn't expect you to have such high hopes for me. However, I have no interest in this Feng Ho. I just want to be with the person I love and live a carefree life." "I just praised you, and now you're saying such unambitious words?" The Frost Sparrow sword was speechless. "Everyone has their own ambitions." Princess Hoofing smiled. "All right, up to you. It's fine as long as you leave the Phoenix clan, because I feel disgusted just by looking at the faces of these people." The Frost Sparrow sword didn't hide its disdain. "What's going on? What did you do?" Bing Changtian glared at Princess Hoofing. Bing Rinning also flew over and looked at the Frost Sparrow sword in disbelief. "It betrayed her? Do you even need to ask? The Frost Sparrow sword is my partner." Princess Hoofing smiled proudly. "What?" Bing Changtian's eyes trembled. Princess Hoofing looked at Bing Changtian and his daughter and sneered. "You don't think that the Frost Sparrow sword is your Dominator Divine Weapon, do you? Feng Ho won't let you get away with this." Bing Rinning shouted, "Who does Feng Ho think she is? One word from that stupid woman, and I'll kill her right now." The Frost Sparrow sword sneered. "You?" Bing Rinning sneered. "It's just the Frost Sparrow sword. Don't forget that the Feng people have 10 Dominator Divine Weapons." Bing Changtian turned to Huidahong and said angrily, "Are you going to let them do whatever they want?" Huidahong looked at Bing Changtian gloomily, then looked at Princess Hoofing and said, "Are you done? Do you really want to rebel? I'm not interested. I just want to take back what's mine." Princess Hoofing looked at the palace at the top of the mountain and stepped into the air. "Bastard!" Huidahong was furious. The other elders and reclusive antiques were also shocked. This was because they knew that the Fire Phoenix eldest princess was definitely going to find the Phoenix Empress to take back the inheritance. Clang! Huidahong waved his hand and the Phoenix Bell appeared. The Fire Phoenix sword and other Dominator Divine weapons also appeared. Princess Hoofing looked at Huidahong and said, No wonder you don't care about your own granddaughter. Feng Ho gave the phoenix bell to you. Hua Dahong said in a low voice, I'll give you one last chance. Hand over the frost sparrow sword, kneel, and apologize to our people. Apologize? Apologize. Do they have the right to apologize? Princess Huifeng looked at the phoenix bell with disdain and bowed. Please come back. Clang. The phoenix bell rang and landed in front of Princess Huifeng. What? Hua Dahong was stunned. What was going on with these two Dominator divine weapons? The Fire Feng people's chief's eyes trembled when he saw this. He was happy. It was obvious that these two Dominator divine weapons only recognized his daughter. Now he could better understand the grievances in Princess Fire Phoenix's heart. Daifuku had left the inheritance to her, and the two Dominator divine weapons only recognized her. However, for the unity of the Feng people, she was willing to give the inheritance and the two Dominator divine weapons to Feng Ho. She sacrificed so much, but what did she get in return? Scolding, hatred, and slander. If Feng Ho hadn't given the Frost Sparrow sword to Bing Changtian and his daughter and crossed the line, his daughter would have chosen to remain silent. Yes, this daughter of his had never disappointed him. However, these clansmen had disappointed his daughter. He wasn't angry at his daughter's choice. Instead, he silently supported her. Whoever dares to stop me will be killed without mercy. Princess Huifeng scanned the crowd and said coldly. Then, she stepped onto the mountain peak with the two Dominator divine weapons. What are you waiting for? Take her down. Hua Dahong, Bing Changtian, and the others looked at the Dominator divine weapons and shouted. However, the group of sovereign divine weapons remained silent and indifferent. What do you mean? She has openly betrayed us and is going to offend Lord Feng Ho. What are you still doing here? Go. A reclusive old antique shouted anxiously. You better shut up for this, ancestor. The Fire Phoenix sword snorted. What? Even you want to betray us? The reclusive old antique roared. Clang! The Fire Phoenix sword vibrated, and a wisp of sword energy shot out. The reclusive old antique screamed, and his body was shattered in the air. This, Bing Changtian, Bing Running, Hua Dahong, and the others were stunned. The Fire Phoenix sword attacked them. Chapter 38-68. This was simply unbelievable. It was understandable that the Frost Sparrow sword and the Phoenix Bell were helping Princess Huifeng. After all, Princess Huifeng obtained them from the Sky Bell divine treasure. However, this Fire Phoenix sword was once subdued by Feng Ho. In other words, Feng Ho was the owner of the Fire Phoenix sword. However, the Fire Phoenix sword was also helping Princess Huifeng at this moment. Not to mention the people of Feng people. The people of the other forces were also in disbelief. What's going on? Also, what did the Frost Sparrow sword mean? It actually said that Princess Huifeng has the ability to become the new Feng Ho. Is it encouraging her to usurp the throne? Everyone was discussing. However, Princess Huifeng turned a deaf ear to all of this. She stood on the mountain peak and stared at the palace gate. Since my concession can't be exchanged for sincerity, then no one can take away what belongs to me. As her voice fell, the law of fire rolled out, and the mountain peak instantly turned into a sea of fire. A flaming statue stood in the middle of the sea of fire, like a god that ruled all directions. This is the ultimate profundity of the law of fire. She has actually comprehended an ultimate profundity. Everyone was shocked. However, as the ultimate profundity of the law of fire was activated, the power of laws descended from the sky. What? There's actually the power of laws. When the Frost Sparrow sword and the Phoenix Bell awakened, the power of laws didn't descend. However, when she activated the ultimate profundity, she actually violated the rules? Everyone was shocked again. Princess Huifeng also raised her eyebrows slightly and looked up at the sky. "Don't worry." The frost sparrow soared, smiled domineeringly. Its sharpness covered the sky and covered the earth, and like a torrent, it blasted toward the power of laws. Boom! The two collided. The power of laws of hell was actually crushed by the frost sparrow sword sharpness. It's so strong, everyone was dumbfounded. At the same time, Black Tortoise whirled. The fire python also obtained the law of fire and was in seclusion somewhere in the devil's land. But suddenly, it opened its eyes, and a trace of bewilderment crept into its eyes. It hurriedly soared into the sky and looked towards the courtyard where Qin Feiyang was and shouted, "Brother Qin, quickly take me out. There's a situation outside." Ah! Qin Feiyang woke up from his closed-door training and walked out of the courtyard in surprise. He looked at the fire python and asked, "What's going on?" "It seems like someone has violated the rules of hell," the fire python said in a deep voice. "Breaking the rules? That means there's a battle." Qin Feiyang was startled. He took a step forward and landed in front of the fire python. He coiled around the fire python and instantly appeared in the main hall. He then opened the main hall's door and landed on the edge of the cliff. A terrifying aura immediately rolled over. So, she was the one who broke the rules. The fire python looked at Princess Hufeng on the opposite mountain peak. Qin Feiyang looked at this scene, and his face was full of suspicion. What's wrong with this woman? Why did she suddenly cause such a big commotion? Boom! The rule force descended once again. Moreover, it wasn't just one, but 10. A destructive aura shrouded heaven and earth. However, the frost sparrow sword was peerlessly domineering. It forcefully shattered the rule force again. Everyone was shocked by this. A sovereign divine weapon was indeed powerful. It could even resist the rule force. However, Qin Feiyang was not surprised at all. Back in the Nether King's hell, the ice dragon had brought the dragon princess to the ancient city of King Yu to cause trouble for him. At that time, in a fit of anger, he activated his slaughter domain and broke the rules. Just like this, 10 rule forces descended at once. Just as he was about to lose his life, 2 war souls appeared. They were the 9-leaf fire lotus and the crimson sword soul. At that time, the 2 war souls had made a move. Not only did they protect him, but they also shattered the rule force. Back on Divine Dragon Island, the 2 war souls could fight against the sovereign divine weapon, the heavenly dragon god sword. Their might was equivalent to a sovereign divine weapon. If the 2 war souls could fight against the rule force here, it was not surprising that a sovereign divine weapon, like the frost sparrow sword, could also fight against the rule force here. However, now, was the Nether King's hell's rule force really nothing to Qin Feiyang? It could only kill heaven-defying divine weapons. A sovereign divine weapon was completely capable of fighting against it. Of course, it could not be underestimated. Take Princess Hufeng, for example. Even though she had mastered the ultimate profundity of an ordinary law, she could not block the rule force without the help of a sovereign divine weapon, unless she had mastered the ultimate profundity of a supreme law. In short, anyone who had a sovereign divine weapon or mastered the ultimate profundity of a supreme law would no longer have to fear the Nether King's hell's rule force. In the blink of an eye, just as the frost sparrow sword shattered the rule force, Princess Hufeng waved her hand. The flame divine spirit standing in the middle of the sea of fire struck the great hall with its palm. With a loud boom, the great hall shattered. However, as soon as the great hall shattered, the auras of the laws of space and destruction surged out. This was Feng Ho's aura. She walked out of the dust cloud step by step. Her aura was majestic. She stared at Princess Hufeng with bone-chilling, killing intent in her eyes. Frost Sparrow Sword, Phoenix Bell, what's going on? Qin Feiyang looked at Feng Ho and then at Princess Hufeng and asked through voice transmission, Qin Feiyang? The 2 sovereign divine weapons were stunned. When they noticed Qin Feiyang standing at the peak of the mountain, they immediately felt a trace of joy in their hearts. Then they briefly explained the situation. What? Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. What he was worried about had indeed happened. However, Princess Huifeng's performance this time surprised him. She actually dared to openly challenge Feng Hou. It's all thanks to Bing Running. If she hadn't brought me to this silly woman to show off, this silly woman definitely wouldn't have resisted. The Frost Sparrow Sword snickered. Qin Feiyang was stunned when he heard this. He turned to look at Bing Running, who was standing behind Bing Changtian. So he had to thank this woman again? Why did he say again? Because last time in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, if this woman hadn't been silly and took the initiative to provoke them, he wouldn't have had the chance to subdue the Ice Phoenix sword. But then again, she couldn't do anything right but spoiled everything. This sentence couldn't be more appropriate to describe Bing Running. Princess Huifeng endured the grievance and reluctance to give the inheritance and the sovereign divine weapon to Feng Hou. This was her bottom line. Anyone with half a brain would know that they couldn't provoke her at this time. Because even if it was a little rabbit, if you provoked it, it would open its mouth and bite you. Let alone a human. And a person who controlled the fate of the Feng people. Yes, now the fate of the Feng people was no longer in the hands of Feng Hou, but in the hands of Princess Huifeng. Because all the sovereign divine weapons had already acknowledged her as their master. But Bing Running didn't believe this and wanted to show off in front of Princess Huifeng, who didn't know the relationship between Princess Huifeng and Bing Running. The Frost Sparrow sword could fall into the hands of Feng Hou and people like Hu Dahong, but it definitely couldn't fall into the hands of Bing Changtian and Bing Running, because if it fell into the hands of the father and daughter, it would be the last hope in Princess Huifeng's heart, the last straw. At that time, she would definitely rebel against the Feng people. Then it would help Qin Feiyang and the others, because Princess Huifeng would rebel against the Feng people. She wouldn't have any worries and would openly walk together with the white-eyed wolf. At that time, wouldn't all the sovereign divine weapons of the Feng people fall into the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others? So, for Qin Feiyang, this was a scene he was very happy to see. Even when he forced the Fire Phoenix sword and the other sovereign divine weapons to submit to Princess Huifeng, he had been looking forward to this day. Brother Qin, do you need my help to block the power of the rules? The fire python looked at the power of the rules that kept falling and bombarding Princess Huifeng and asked, No need. The Frost Sparrow sword and Phoenix bell can handle it. Besides, don't you still have me? Qin Feiyang smiled confidently. The power of the rules in hell had indeed given him a headache, but now he didn't care about it. Okay, however, their battle can't be completely erupted, or else it will affect the creatures in hell. The fire python was very worried. I know. Qin Feiyang nodded. The battle wouldn't erupt completely because Feng Hou didn't have the strength to do so. At the peak of the mountain, the Frost Sparrow sword and Phoenix bell were helping to resist the power of the rules. Princess Huifeng and Feng Hou stood facing each other. The current Princess Huifeng exuded the aura of an empress, and it wasn't inferior to Feng Hou at all. Moreover, facing Feng Hou now, she no longer had the fear and respect she had in the past. It was as if they were of the same generation. Stop immediately, and I'll let bygones be bygones. After a moment of silence, Feng Hou finally spoke. From her gloomy tone, it wasn't hard to see that she was trying her best to endure. Then should I thank you for showing mercy? Princess Huifeng asked indifferently. It seems like you don't want to cherish this opportunity. Feng Hou said in a deep voice. You're wrong. It wasn't you who gave me the opportunity. It was me who gave you the opportunity. You want the ultimate inheritance of the law of karma. Fine, I'll give it to you. You want the Frost Sparrow sword and Phoenix bell. Fine, I'll give them to you too. At that time, I even secretly told the Frost Sparrow sword and Phoenix bell to protect the Feng people. But what did I get in return for doing that? Not only did you give the Frost Sparrow sword to Bing Changtian and his daughter, but you also asked Bing Changtian to secretly spy on me and Daifuku. I'd like to ask Lord Feng Ho, what exactly are you trying to do? First Princess Huifeng asked. Her tone was very calm, but once she said those words, it immediately caused a huge uproar. The dragons, the Kirins, the humans, the ferocious beasts, the sea beasts, and the people from various forces all looked at Feng Ho in disbelief. She actually snatched the inheritance from a junior? Oh my god! Is this something that a master of a forbidden area should do? Fine. You want it, I'll give it to you. After all, you're an elder. I'm a junior, and I should be filial to you. However, you actually gave my Dominator Divine weapon to Bing Changtian and his daughter? That's too much. Who didn't know the grudge between Princess Huifeng and Bing Changtian and his daughter? Wasn't it obvious that Princess Huifeng would be disappointed by what she did? Therefore, everyone present couldn't help but complain about the injustice in their hearts for Princess Huifeng. She had worked so hard for so many years in the Heavenly Bell Divine Treasure, but in the end, she had benefited Bing Changtian and his daughter. She even ended up in a situation where she was spied on. Anyone would be resentful. Chapter 38-69. At the same time, Feng Ho was also furious. She had tried her best to restrain herself because she didn't want to make a big deal out of it and ruin her reputation. However, she didn't expect Princess Huifeng to say it in public without any scruples. She was instantly cursed by everyone. The elders and antiques of the Feng people also looked quite gloomy. If Feng Ho's reputation was ruined, the entire Feng people would be disgraced as well. Their resentment towards Princess Huifeng grew even stronger. Yes, even at this time, they didn't reflect on themselves. They just kept pushing the blame onto Princess Huifeng. This was the common problem of selfish people. They would never think that it was their fault. If it was in the past, Princess Huifeng would definitely choose to remain silent and swallow this grievance alone. However, it was different now. She wanted to be her true self for once. Taking a step back and enduring would only encourage the other party to be arrogant. She looked at the Phoenix Empress with an extremely cold expression and said indifferently, "Please, return the inheritance to me right now. You're courting death." Phoenix Empress clenched her fists and looked at the sovereign divine weapons floating below her. She shouted, "Kill this treacherous traitor right now." Hearing this, the Fire Feng people's chief's eyes trembled. He immediately looked at the 9 sovereign divine weapons. Although the Fire Phoenix sword had helped his daughter before, they were facing Feng Ho after all. Facing Feng Ho, would these sovereign divine weapons still help his daughter? Gradually, a glimmer of hope rose in his heart, but he was even more surprised, because the Fire Phoenix sword and the other sovereign divine weapons didn't move. What surprised him was why these sovereign divine weapons were taking care of his daughter now. Didn't you hear Feng Ho's order? Why are you still standing here like idiots? The elders and antiques of the Feng people also shouted angrily. Sigh. The Fire Phoenix soared sighed and flew to the top of the mountain. The other 8 sovereign divine weapons also silently followed after him. The Fire Feng people's chief became nervous again. Bing Changtian, Bing Running, and the others sneered. They all thought that the fiery phoenix sword and the other sovereign divine weapons were targeting Princess Huifeng. In his heart, he was very pleased with himself. Even a sovereign weapon wouldn't dare to disobey Feng Ho's orders. However, they didn't notice that Princess Huifeng, whose back was facing them, didn't have any trace of nervousness on her face. Instead, there was a trace of mockery. Feng Ho looked at Princess Huifeng and said, "It's not too late for you to admit your mistake." Even she did not notice the trace of mockery hidden in Princess Huifeng's eyes. Princess Huifeng smiled without saying anything. "All right, I'll fulfill your wish." Feng Ho was furious. She shouted righteously, You disobeyed your superiors. You colluded with the enemy and harmed your own clansmen. Your crime is punishable by death. I hereby announce that you will be sentenced to death as a warning to others." After that, she looked at the fiery phoenix sword and the other sovereign divine weapons and waved her arm. No. The Fire Fong people shouted and ran toward the mountain peak. However, Huidahong stopped him and said angrily, "Do you want to die too? Do you want me to leave you in the lurch? She's my daughter, your granddaughter. How can you be so heartless?" The Fire Fong people shouted. "She's at fault. Besides, is Fong Ho someone we can offend? It's fine if you want to die, but don't drag us down with you." Huidahong snorted. Hearing this, the Fire Fong people looked at his old father as if he was looking at a stranger. His granddaughter was in a life-threatening situation, but he didn't care. He even seemed to be gloating. Was this the father he had always respected? Only now did he realize that his old father had such a cold side. "Father, don't worry." Princess Huifeng turned to look at the Fire Fong people and smiled. "How can I not worry?" the Fire Fong people cried. "Trust me." Princess Huifeng smiled, then looked at Fong Ho and sighed. "To be honest, I'm really disappointed now because you're the person I've always respected. But thank you. Thank you for being so heartless and for shattering the last bit of hope in my heart." Yes, she actually still had a glimmer of hope. If Fong Ho could realize her mistake, apologize to her, and take the initiative to return the inheritance to her, she might continue to stay in the Fong people. However, it turned out that it was purely wishful thinking on her part. How could someone like Fong Ho realize her mistake? Even if she knew it was her fault, she would never admit it. There was nothing to be sad about. What are you doing? What are you waiting for? She's already betrayed the Fong people. You don't have to care about her. Fong Ho looked at the fiery phoenix sword and the other sovereign divine weapons and shouted. She thought. The fiery phoenix sword and the other sovereign divine weapons were unwilling to attack because they remembered their past relationship with Princess Huifeng. They couldn't bear to do anything to Princess Huifeng. However, she didn't know that even if these sovereign divine weapons were given 100 guts, they wouldn't dare to do anything to Princess Huifeng. Sigh. Princess Huifeng shook her head and sighed. She looked at Fong Ho and said calmly, "Do you think they'll still listen to you?" "What do you mean?" Fong Ho was surprised. "I'm not who I used to be. They're also not who they used to be." Princess Huifeng smiled and looked up at the fiery phoenix sword and the other sovereign divine weapons. She said, "No matter what method you use, you must make Lord Fong Ho hand over the inheritance of the law of karma." Yes. Immediately, under countless incredulous gazes, the 9 sovereign divine weapons responded respectfully. Then, they swarmed forward and surrounded Fong Ho. What's going on? This was especially so for the members of the Phoenix clan. They were all dumbfounded as they watched this scene. The Fire Fong people's chief was also stunned. Needless to say, Bing Running's face was full of disbelief. Of course, Fong Ho was no exception. In an instant, the place fell into a dead silence. Everyone's face was full of doubts. "Fong Ho, don't force us to attack. Hand over the inheritance," Fiery Phoenix sword said, breaking the silence. "Why?" Fong Ho quivered and looked at the sovereign divine weapons and shouted angrily. "We've seen what you've done these days. To be honest, it's quite disappointing. And we've also seen the princess's efforts in the Sky Bell divine treasure. It can be said that if it weren't for her, none of the sovereign divine weapons would have escaped from Qin Feiyang's evil clutches. In other words, if it weren't for the princess and Qin Feiyang, we would have fallen into Qin Feiyang's hands now, let alone the inheritance of the strongest law. For the sake of the Fong people, she really has a clear conscience. But how did you treat her? How did the clansmen of the Fong people treat her? To be honest, all these years we've been serving the princess. In fact, we've been holding a grudge in our hearts. But now, It seems that she's more suitable to be our assistant than you. She's also more suitable to be the Feng, Ho of the Feng people. Fiery Phoenix, sword sighed. These were words from the bottom of her heart. Surrender. Feng Ho's eyes were trembling. Bing Changtian and the others were also very surprised. These sovereign divine weapons had surrendered to this woman? It's indeed unfair to the princess. Fiery Phoenix, Divine Jade, also sighed and said, take the Ice Phoenix sword for example. When the princess met Qin Feiyang and learned that Bing Runing had lost the Ice Phoenix sword, she did everything she could to make up for this loss. She cooperated with Qin Feiyang so that she could get more sovereign divine weapons and precept miniatures as soon as possible. The Frost Sparrow sword, the Phoenix Bell, and the inheritance of the law of fire and the law of cause and effect were all obtained because she cooperated with Qin Feiyang. She was always thinking about the Feng people, but what about you? It's fine if you don't thank her, but you actually accused her of colluding with the enemy and killing her clansmen. The worst thing is that you scolded her while enjoying the inheritance and sovereign divine weapons that she brought back from the Heaven Bell divine treasure. How hypocritical! Fiery Phoenix Divine Jade's words were full of disdain and contempt, which made the Feng people and the others lower their heads in shame. The people of the other forces also had disgust in their eyes. Princess Huifeng might lie to them, but these sovereign divine weapons wouldn't lie. The people of the Feng people were really too much. She was supposed to be a hero, but she ended up being a sinner. It sounded a little funny. Hurry up! There's a limit to our patience. The Frost Sparrow sword shouted. Feng Ho was indifferent. First of all, at this moment, her heart was full of anger and resentment. Not only did a junior openly provoke her, but the sovereign divine weapon also betrayed her. Second of all, she really didn't dare to take out the inheritance of the law of cause and effect, because once she took it out, it would be tantamount to admitting that she stole the inheritance in front of everyone. How could she live in the future? It seems that you really want to force us to make a move. You have to think about it carefully. The Feng people don't have any sovereign divine weapons now. With the two ultimate laws you have mastered, and Bing Changtian and the other ants, you can never defeat us. Fiery Phoenix, sword said. Hearing this, the people of the Feng people, including Feng Ho, couldn't help but tremble. That's right. Because of the betrayal of the sovereign divine weapons, the Feng people didn't even have a single sovereign divine weapon. The Phoenix Empress was the only one who had grasped the ultimate profundity of an ultimate law. How could the Feng people fight against her? Hui Dahong quivered. He looked at the Fire Feng people and whispered, Hurry up and persuade Wu-Er. If there's anything, we can discuss it in private. Don't make such a big deal out of it. We'll be laughed at by the other forces. Now you want to discuss it? The Fire Phoenix clan leader sneered, completely unmoved. Looking at the Fire Phoenix clan leader on the mountain peak, his brows were filled with pride. This was his daughter. Good job. With her own strength, she shook the entire Feng people and controlled the lifeline of the Feng people. You, Hui Dahong, glared at the Fire Feng people. The Fire Feng people ignored him. Suddenly, Bing Changtian jumped out and slapped the back of the Fire Feng people. The Fire Feng people immediately screamed. His sea of qi was directly shattered, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Bing Changtian, you! The Fire Feng people flew into a rage. Humph! It's all your fault. It's because you didn't teach your daughter well. Bing Changtian snorted and grabbed the neck of the Fire Feng people. He looked up at Princess Huifeng and said, Surrender now or I'll kill him. Chapter 3870. In an instant, everyone's eyes fell on Bing Changtian. How dare he sneak attack the Fire Feng people and threaten Princess Huifeng? You're the clan leader of the Ice Phoenix clan. How dare you use such despicable means? At the same time, Qin Feiyang also looked at Bing Changtian. This man had come out to cause trouble more than once. He really won't cry until he's in the coffin. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He looked at Bing Running, who was beside Bing Changtian. If he remembered correctly, this woman seemed to be the other person who had opened the Eye of Despair. Interesting. Immediately, he lifted the corner of his mouth slightly and said, "Brother Fire, I still need your help to shield the power of the rules." Okay. The fire python nodded. It had been so long, and Ice Dragon and Small Beast hadn't appeared. They probably wouldn't care about these trivial matters. With a thought, the power of the rules of heaven and earth immediately dissipated. Qin Feiyang immediately waved his hand, and a young man in black in his 20s appeared beside him. It was the demon ancestor. The demon ancestor had always looked quite handsome. "What are you doing?" The demon ancestor glanced at the people of various clans and turned to look at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. "Do you see that woman?" Qin Feiyang pouted his lips at Bing Running. The demon ancestor looked at Bing Running. When his eyes met Bing Running, there was an uncontrollable sense of repulsion in his heart. His expression immediately turned bewildered. "That's right. She's the other person who had opened the Eye of Despair. When she was in the sky Bell Divine Treasure, I saw her open the Fighting Soul." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Really? That's really a case of traveling far and wide looking for something, only to find it by chance." The demon ancestor suddenly had a trace of playfulness in his eyes. "The Eye of Despair seems to be one of the 10 strongest fighting souls. Aren't the 10 strongest fighting souls unique?" The fire python listened to their conversation and couldn't help but have a trace of suspicion in his eyes. "Brother Fire, there's something you don't know. The 10 most powerful fighting souls need to be fused together to become unique," Qin Feiyang explained via voice transmission. Because Python had never been to the Sky Cloud realm, he knew nothing about this. At the same time, Princess Woofing heard the screams of the Fire Fong people. She turned around and looked down. When she saw Bing Changtian sneakily attacking her father and even using her father as a hostage, her eyes were filled with killing intent. If it was Huadahom, she would definitely ignore him. But the Fire Fong people looked different. The chief of the Fire Fong people stood by her side the whole time. Although Fire Fong people did not stand up for Fong Ho when she was fighting for the inheritance in the main hall, she knew that her father was helpless. Even though Chief Fong people was the leader of the clan and held a high position, he had no right to speak in front of Fong Ho, the clan elders, and the old antiques in the clan. The most important thing was her father's love for her was unadulterated. When the Phoenix Empress saw this, she seemed to have seen hope. She sent a voice transmission. "Woo! I was indeed in the wrong in this matter, but I really didn't have any intention of targeting you. Everything I did was for the Phoenix clan, just like you." Did she really know she was wrong? No. She was trying to appease Princess Huofeng's emotions while looking for an opportunity to kill her in one strike. But now, would Princess Huofeng believe her? Obviously not. She looked at the Phoenix Bell and said, "Find a chance to kill Bing Changtian." Now that Python had blocked the rules, there was no need to worry about the power of rules. "No problem. You have to be like this in the future. You can't be merciful to your enemies." After the Phoenix Bell said that, it instantly appeared above Bing Changtian's head. Boom! Majesty rolled in. Bing Changtian was imprisoned in the void on the spot. Why don't you think about it? The Phoenixes no longer have any Dominator Divine weapons. With the strength of Dominator Divine weapons like the Phoenix Bell, how could they give you a chance to threaten them? Even if they had hostages, it would only be a matter of time for you to rescue them. The Huofeng people took the opportunity to break free, but he didn't leave. He turned to look at Bing Changtian. His soul consciousness rolled out like an invisible arrow and directly went into Bing Changtian's lower abdomen. For an expert at his level, the destruction of his Sea of Qi didn't mean that he had lost the ability to fight back. The divine soul and soul consciousness could be used as weapons to fight back. Bing Changtian was imprisoned by the Phoenix Bell's power and couldn't move at all. He could only watch the Huafeng people attack. With a painful scream, Bing Changtian's sea of qi was shattered on the spot. Blood splattered and dyed the void red. None of Hua Dahong's group went to rescue him. Even Bing Runing was the same. They all stepped back in horror. Now, they deeply realized the consequences of not having a Dominator Divine weapon. If they had a Dominator Divine weapon at this moment, that's right, they didn't need too many. A Dominator Divine weapon was enough to stop the Phoenix Bell and hold the Huafeng people in their hands. Unfortunately, now, even a Sovereign Divine weapon was an extravagant hope for the Phoenixes. At the mountain peak, Feng Ho was also annoyed. They couldn't even protect a hostage. They were simply a bunch of useless trash. But suddenly, she noticed that the Dragon King and the Kirin Lord were watching in front of their respective palaces. She said, "Are you just going to watch? Help me. Don't forget that we have an agreement to fight against Qin Feiyang together." The two giants heard this and looked at each other. They didn't do anything. If they didn't know about Qin Feiyang's harvest in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, if they didn't know about the relationship between Princess Huifeng and the White-Eyed Wolf, they would still lend a helping hand. After all, Princess Huifeng was alone. If the two races joined forces, it would be easy to take her down. But now, even as the lords of the restricted area, they really didn't have the courage. Because behind Princess Huifeng, there was not only Dominator Divine weapons like the Fire Phoenix Sword, but also Qin Feiyang and his group. One had to know, Qin Feiyang's current foundation had already surpassed theirs. In addition, there was the Feather Emperor, the Little Rabbit, the Land of Buried Gods, the Sea Beasts, the human race, and so on. Who would be able to shake this power now? Moreover, this matter was originally Feng Ho's fault. Speaking of which, Feng Ho was also stupid. With the relationship between Princess Huifeng and the White-Eyed Wolf, if she handled it a little better, she would definitely be able to get a lot of rule miniatures from Qin Feiyang's hands. But she wanted to do the opposite. If this wasn't suicide, then what was? Looking at the two indifferent people, the Phoenix Empress was furious to the extreme. These people were indeed unreliable. Seeing that her father was out of danger, Princess Huifeng couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. She looked at the Phoenix Bell and said, "Kill it." Clang! The Phoenix Bell immediately fell, and a terrifying divine aura surged. "No! Feng Ho, save me!" Bing Changtian roared. In the end, accompanied by a desperate scream, his body and soul were destroyed. "Father!" Bing Runing's body and mind trembled, and her face turned pale. She never thought that the situation would develop like this. If she had known that she would touch Princess Huifeng's bottom line, she wouldn't have dared to bring the Frost Sparrow sword to show off. It could be said that everything that happened today was caused by her. Bing Changtian's death was also because of her. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. On the mountain peak, seeing that Feng Ho still didn't take out the Karma Law inheritance, the Fire Phoenix sword's tone was cold as she shouted, "Attack!" The 9 Dominator Divine weapons and the Frost Sparrow sword attacked Feng Ho at the same time. Stop, stop, stop. But at this moment, a voice sounded. Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. What was going on? He actually made the Fire Phoenix sword and the other Dominator Divine weapon stop? This didn't seem like this person's style. Qin Feiyang took a step forward and walked to the mountain peak on the opposite side. He landed beside Fire Phoenix First Princess and looked at the Sovereign's divine weapons. He said in displeasure, "How can you treat Lord Phoenix, Empress, like this?" The Fire Phoenix sword and the other Dominator Divine weapons were stunned. What was this guy trying to do? Who didn't know Qin Feiyang's character? He never showed mercy to his enemies, unless there was a special reason. But with his relationship with Feng Ho, what special reason could there be? So, It was obvious that he didn't have good intentions, because he wasn't such a kind person to begin with. Qin Feiyong glanced at Feng Ho and sighed. We have to respect a senior like Feng Ho. Even if she is unreasonable and snatches the inheritance, we can't force her. We have to slowly reason with her and persuade her to take it out willingly. Hearing this, those who knew Qin Feiyong well, such as Long Chen and Qi Shaoyin, couldn't help but twitch their mouths. Reason. Or to reason with the Phoenix Empress. Do you think that's possible with your character? He must be holding back a lot of evil ideas. As expected, Qin Feiyong turned his gaze and looked at the Feng people below. The members of the Phoenix clan were also puzzled. What was this person trying to do? They wouldn't believe that he was sincerely helping them. Don't panic. I will ask the Phoenix Bell to be gentler. Qin Feiyong chuckled and looked at the Phoenix Bell. He smiled and said, kill them one by one. Remember, your actions must be gentle and not too bloody. After all, we are all reasonable people. We have to convince others with virtue. The Phoenix Bell was stunned and pondered for a moment before it understood. He seemed to be asking it to kill all the Feng people? It was speechless. What did this have to do with convincing others with virtue? Not only the Phoenix Bell, but Long Chen and the rest also had a bitter smile on their faces. Sure enough, he didn't have good intentions. However, the Feng people were scared out of their wits. Kill them one by one. Did this mean that if Feng Ho didn't hand over the inheritance, he would keep killing them until they were all dead? At the thought of this, the group of people couldn't help but feel their hair stand on end and their faces turn pale. Lord Feng Ho, quickly hand over the inheritance to them. You know better than us what kind of person Qin Feiyong is. He will definitely do what he says. I don't want to die. Please have pity on us. It's just an inheritance. There's no need to sacrifice all of us. The members of the Phoenix clan all knelt in the void. Their pleas rose and fell one after another, lingering in the ears. Chapter 3871. Looking at this group of cowardly and panic-stricken clansmen, Feng Ho was angry and hateful. They were Feng people after all. Couldn't they have a little backbone? However, she was even angrier at Qin Feiyong's attitude. On the surface, it sounded nice. He respected her and tried to influence her, but in reality, he was simply trampling on her dignity. Senior Feng Ho, as a junior, I'm not bad, right? Qin Feiyong looked at Fire Phoenix and chuckled, but his eyes were full of ridicule. That's right. With my current ability, I can directly snatch the inheritance from you, but I won't do that. I want to force you to hand over the inheritance willingly and let you experience what despair is. Looking at Qin Feiyong's smiling face, Feng Ho couldn't help but gnash her teeth. If she could, she really wanted to slap him. Phoenix Bell, do it. Let's start with the old antiques of the Ice Phoenix clan. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. The group of old antiques of the Ice Phoenix clan trembled and roared, Feng Ho, please save us! Dong! But at the same time, accompanied by the sound of a bell, the divine power of the Phoenix Bell fell, and an old antique immediately flew into the air uncontrollably. Don't kill me! The old antique screamed and struggled desperately. But this was the Phoenix Bell, a sovereign divine weapon. Even though he had mastered the ultimate meaning of ordinary laws, it was useless. Accompanied by desperate screams, the old antique's body shattered bit by bit. Blood gushed out and dyed the void red. Qin Feiyong, please don't kill me. I'm willing to be your slave. In the face of life and death, seeing that Feng Ho was useless, the old antique immediately roared at Qin Feiyong, who was on the mountain peak. Qin Feiyong turned a deaf ear and looked at Feng Ho quietly. The Phoenix Bell's methods were really gentle. Quite a while had already passed, but old antique still hadn't died. His body hadn't been completely pulverized, and his blood-curdling screams continued to reverberate between heaven and earth. Seeing this, many people couldn't help but feel their scalps go numb. They cursed in their hearts. This damned gentleness was clearly a form of torture. Rather than that, he might as well be a little more ruthless and straightforward. About 10 breaths passed. All that was left of old antique was his soul. Seeing that Feng Ho was still unmoved, Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. It seems that he is still not gentle enough to influence our Lady Feng Ho. Hey! The Phoenix Bell chuckled, and divine might rolled out. The people of the Feng people were instantly enveloped by this divine might. Qin Feiyang's expression changed. He pointed at Bing Running and said, "Don't attack her." Princess Huifeng was stunned. The others were also puzzled. Based on the grudge between Qin Feiyang and Bing Running, shouldn't he be the focus of attention? Why didn't the Phoenix Bell touch her now? What the hell was this guy doing? Even Bing Running herself was puzzled. Wait, could it be that Qin Feiyang has taken a fancy to Bing Running's beauty and wants to do something? No way. I heard that Qin Feiyang is already married, and I also heard that his wife is extraordinarily beautiful. What do you know? Which man would dislike having too many wives? Moreover, this Bing Running is indeed good-looking. Gossip was a fearful thing. This sentence was indeed true. It was obviously made up out of nothing. But after everyone's discussion, it instantly became as if it was true. Even Qin Feiyang himself couldn't help but feel helpless when he heard this. Why were these people's imaginations so rich? Bing Running? Although she was indeed somewhat beautiful, with such a vicious heart, how could he take a fancy to her? Moreover, he was single-minded when it came to relationships. The Phoenix Bell was also stunned, but it didn't ask much and let Bing Running go. But the others weren't so lucky. Not only did the pressure increase, but everyone couldn't help but scream as blood gushed out of their bodies. His pleas to the Phoenix Empress had never stopped. Feng Ho looked at this scene and clenched her hands tightly. This was the backbone of the Feng people. Now that they had lost the sovereign divine weapon, if they also lost these people, the entire Feng people, except for her, would be left with a group of old and weak soldiers. At that time, how could the Feng people keep pace with the dragons and the Kirin clan? At that time, the Feng people would even become the weakest side in the Sky Cloud realm. Although the human race used to be at the bottom, it was different now. The Feather Emperor and the Blood Ancestor had returned. With these two experts, the human race was no longer the same as before. The Feng people were at the bottom. This kind of thing absolutely couldn't happen. However, if she lowered her head like this, how could she establish her prestige in the future? How could she establish a foothold in the Sky Cloud realm? Wouldn't she be laughed at by others? She endured the grievance in her heart and transmitted her voice. Qin Feiyang, don't be too ruthless. Let's talk in private. Qin Feiyang smiled but didn't say anything. Don't go too far. Feng Ho roared in a low voice. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. How could she have the face to say this? Who was going too far? Sure enough, there was a saying that said, despicable people were invincible. Lord Feng Ho, save me. At first, only a small part of the old antique's divine soul was left. Seeing that his divine soul was about to be destroyed, his heart was terrified to the extreme. As for the others, including Hu Dahong, their bodies were shattering bit by bit. It was worse than death, because if they were killed directly, the fear before death would be very short. But now, they were facing a very long process, stepping into death bit by bit. This kind of fear would be infinitely magnified until finally they completely collapsed. No, the old antique only had the last wisp of divine soul left. His miserable cry resounded through the sky. Stop! Feng Ho couldn't sit still anymore. She looked at the Phoenix Bell and roared. But the Phoenix Bell didn't stop. Feng Ho hurriedly looked at Qin Feiyang and said anxiously, "Make it stop. I'll hand over the inheritance." The inheritance is really in her hands. How selfish. She's not being selfish anymore. Because generally, selfish people will at least give the younger generation a way out after robbing something that belongs to them. But not only did she snatch the inheritance, she also wants to kill them all. This kind of person actually calls herself Feng Ho. How ridiculous. People from various forces started to discuss without hiding anything. Facing those pairs of eyes full of contempt, Feng Ho felt even more humiliated. She couldn't wait to find a hole to crawl into. See, that's reasonable. If you encounter such things in the future, remember to be like this. Use sincerity to influence the other party. Qin Feiyang chuckled. The Phoenix Bell was speechless to the extreme. It released the pressure. The Feng people were like stray dogs. They desperately ran toward Feng Ho. Lord Feng Ho, give it to me. Qin Feiyang looked at Feng Ho with a smile. Feng Ho glared at Qin Feiyang. If looks could kill, Qin Feiyang would have died countless times. However, Qin Feiyang completely treated it as air. His face was full of smiles. Finally, Feng Ho still took out the inheritance and threw it to Princess Huifeng. Princess Huifeng immediately caught it in her hand. After confirming that there was no mistake, she breathed a sigh of relief. That's the inheritance of the law of cause and effect. And it's the inheritance of the ultimate profound. My God, there is actually such a divine object in this world. Then Princess Huifeng, as long as she fuses with this inheritance, will she be able to control the ultimate profound of the law of cause and effect. People from various forces looked at Princess Huifeng with envy in their eyes. At the same time, they were curious. What kind of place is this Sky Bell Divine Treasury? It actually has such a divine object. Wait a minute. Even Princess Huifeng has an inheritance of the ultimate profound. Then, what about Qin Feiyang? It seems that from the moment he came back until now, Qin Feiyang hasn't personally made a move. What level has his current strength reached? There is also Frenzy and Golden Wing Wolf King. They haven't appeared until now. Are they dead? But if they are dead, why isn't there any sadness on Qin Feiyang's face? Everyone stared at Qin Feiyang in surprise. There were countless doubts in their minds. And for all this, Qin Feiyang naturally wouldn't explain. He looked at Princess Feng Ho with a trace of sympathy in his eyes. She sacrificed so much for the Feng people, but in exchange she got such a result. What a pitiful woman. Feng Ho said in a deep voice, "The inheritance has been given to you. Now, please disappear in front of this sovereign immediately." Okay. Qin Feiyang chuckled and looked at the Phoenix Bell. Take Bing Rinning and let's go. Bing Rinning's gaze trembled. What does this person want to do? Why should we take Bing Rinning away? Feng Ho's gaze also sank. I really want to reason with you, but you really don't know what's good for you. You want to know why? Okay, I'll tell you. Because my current strength is stronger than yours. Are you satisfied? Qin Feiyang sneered, looked at Feng Ho with disdain, and turned to leave. Stronger than me? Haha, really arrogant to the extreme. Since you're stronger than me, then fight with this sovereign if you have the ability. If this sovereign loses, then from now on you will be my leader. But if this sovereign wins, then return the Fire Phoenix sword and the other sovereign divine weapons to the Feng people. Feng Ho shouted, the power of law surging, her face full of provocation. Follow my lead? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He turned his head and glanced at Hu Dahong and the others. He shook his head and smiled. I'm sorry, these people. Even if you give them to me, I don't want them because they are not worthy. Giving them to me is purely a waste of resources. As for my strength, there will be plenty of time in the future. You will have the chance to see it. After saying that, Qin Feiyang left without looking back and landed in front of the fire python and the demon ancestor. Now, everyone noticed the demon ancestor. Who was this person? They had never seen him before. He seemed to be very strong. Father, Princess Huifeng put away the inheritance. She did not have any nostalgia for the Feng people. She lowered her head to look at the Fire Feng people and said, "Father, come with me. I'm very worried about you staying in the Feng people." "Okay." The Fire Feng people nodded and landed in front of Princess Hoofing. This made Princess Hoofing a little stunned. She thought that her father would definitely hesitate. Perhaps no matter how she persuaded him, her father would not leave the Feng people. Because her father was such a person, no matter what happened, he would not abandon the Feng people. But she never expected that he would be so decisive at this moment. Chapter 3872. What's wrong? The Fire Feng people looked at Princess Hoofing suspiciously. "Nothing. I'm just a little surprised." Princess Hoofing came back to her senses and shook her head. Hearing this, the Fire Feng people looked at Feng Ho and the others. Then he looked at Princess Hoofing and said with a smile, "If it was in the past, I definitely wouldn't leave the Feng people. But after experiencing this, I finally understand that no matter status or power, it's actually not as important as family." Hearing this, Princess Hoofing felt a warmth in her heart. "In the past, father restrained you too much. You must be under a lot of pressure. But from now on, father won't interfere anymore. You can do whatever you want to do. As for me, I'm tired and old. Now, I just want to find a place to spend the rest of my life. As for the clan leader of the Fire Phoenix clan, whoever wants to be can be the clan leader." The Fire Feng people smiled and took out a space divine item. With a wave of his hand, two figures immediately appeared. They were Pyrotechnic Glow and Xiaofu. "Sister, Princess." When the two of them saw Princess Hoofing, their faces were full of joy. Because the Fire Python blocked the power of the rules here, no matter who it was, they could freely enter and exit the space divine item. You all know what's going on outside, right? The Fire Feng people looked at the two of them and asked. Yes, the two of them nodded. Although they had been in the space divine item all this time, in the hell of the King of Hades, they could hear what was going on outside. "Then what do you think?" the Fire Feng people asked. "Is there a need to think? Wherever you and sister go, I'll go." Pyrotechnic Glow said. "Me too." Xiaofu nodded. The Fire Feng people laughed and waved his hand. The Space Divine item flew to Feng Ho and said, "The clan members and resources of the Fire Phoenix clan are all in here. I'll give them all to you now. Take care of yourself." After saying that, he led his children and the Daifuku brothers towards the opposite mountain peak. "Hu Wenchang, are you also going to betray the Feng people?" Hu Dahong roared in exasperation. "It's not that I want to betray you. It's just that the Feng people can't tolerate us. Father, you're on your own now." The Fire Feng people's chief shook his head and said without turning his head. When Zihue looked at Hu Dahong, his face was filled with disappointment. She had never expected her grandfather to be such a heartless person. "Feng Ho, save me." At the same time, Bing Rinning, who was imprisoned by the Phoenix Bell, struggled with all her might while calling for help. He didn't know what Qin Feiyang wanted to do. However, with the grudge between her and Qin Feiyang, it was easy to imagine that once she fell into the hands of Qin Feiyang, she would definitely not have a good ending. However, in the face of her call for help, the Feng people were angry but didn't dare to say anything. Now, they didn't even have a sovereign divine weapon. The dragons and Kirins were also watching from the sidelines. They didn't have the ability to resist at all. The Fire Phoenix sword and the group of sovereign divine weapons sighed deeply and left with Princess Hoofing. "Brother Qin, thank you for taking care of my daughter in the Sky Bell divine treasure." Hu Wenchang landed in front of Qin Feiyang and cupped his hands with a smile. "It's my pleasure." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled, asking, "Senior, what are your plans from now on?" "What else can I plan? In terms of strength, I'm not as good as you young people. In terms of wisdom, I'm far inferior to you. And all these years, For the sake of the Feng people, I haven't had a good day's rest. So now, I want to find a quiet place to stay for a while and relax. Hu Wenchang shook his head and smiled. Qin Feiang thought for a while and smiled. Then why don't you follow me to the Black Tortoise World? Black Tortoise World? Hu Wenchang was stunned. Yes, the Black Tortoise World is not as strong as the Sky Cloud World, but the people there are kind and hospitable. Even if you want to scheme against them, you won't be able to find an opponent. Qin Feiang smiled. Is it appropriate? Hu Wenchang hesitated. What's wrong with it? Let's go. Qin Feiang smiled faintly. Then he led the group of people and the group of sovereign divine weapons and disappeared without a trace. I envy them. They can live a good life with Qin Feiang. The white-bearded old man shook his head. Qi Shaoyan was stunned and he teased. Teacher, if you want to go, you can go anytime. I won't stop you. You little brat. The white-bearded old man laughed and looked at the Feng people and sighed. The fate of the Feng people has changed. Yeah, Qi Shaoyan nodded. She asked for it. The Qilin master snorted and returned to the hall without looking back. Qi Shaoyan looked at the Qilin master's back and transmitted his voice. Teacher, if I hadn't fused with the law of destruction in the Sky Bell Divine Treasury, would the same thing have happened? I don't know. The white-bearded old man shook his head. Sigh. The human heart. It's really hard to guess. Qi Shaoyan sighed and was about to leave. Shaoyan, come in. But at this moment, the Qilin master's voice sounded in the hall. Qi Shaoyun's heart trembled as he looked at the white-bearded old man. Don't worry. Compared to the Phoenix Empress, this old ancestor of yours is rather sensible. The white-bearded old man smiled comfortingly. Hearing that, Qi Shaoyan took a deep breath and entered the hall. What a pity! The opportunity was right in front of him, but he didn't cherish it. If he was a little smarter, the Feng people wouldn't have suffered such a great loss. Instead, they might have even surpassed the dragons and Qilins. A sigh sounded. It was Long Qin. He shook his head and sighed. Then he turned around and left with the first prince of the dragons. Long Qin, what do you mean by that? Someone from the Feng people heard his words and immediately asked. Long Qin stopped and turned to look at the group of people. He said suspiciously, don't you understand? Do you think the relationship between your princess and the golden-winged wolf king is enough for you to benefit from it? Her relationship with the golden-winged wolf king? What's their relationship? The Feng people were puzzled. You still don't know? Long Qin was astonished, but after thinking about it, he understood. Based on the Feng people's attitude towards Qin Feiang and the others, Princess Huifeng definitely wouldn't dare to say it out loud. Let's satisfy your curiosity. Your princess has already gotten together with the golden-winged wolf king. That's all I have to say. Take your time to figure it out. Long Qin smiled faintly and left without looking back. What? She has actually gotten together with the golden-winged wolf king. It's indeed premeditated. She has long wanted to betray the Feng people. Damn it. The Feng people were furious. Long Qin hadn't entered the cave abode yet. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh when he heard the angry shouts of the group of people. They were indeed a group of hopeless idiots. If Princess Huifeng really wanted to betray them, would she have given the inheritance and the Dominator Divine weapon to Feng Ho? Instead of reflecting on herself, she kept blaming others. There was a saying, a pitiful person must have something to hate. This saying was true. The Black Tortoise World, other than Qin Feiang and the Fire Python, everyone else was still in seclusion. Compared to the scheming and murky world outside, this place was filled with a peaceful atmosphere. This is the Black Tortoise World. Hu Wenchang looked at everything in front of him in amazement. It was also Bing Running's first time here, but at this moment she was in no mood to care about anything else. Her face was pale. As for Hu Zihue, he had been to the Black Tortoise World before, so there was nothing new about this place. He swept his shifty eyes over the Devil's Land and asked, "Big Brother Qin, where are Brother Frenzy and Boss Wolf?" Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned. He looked at Pyrotechnic Glow and joked, "Do you miss them that much?" "Of course. After all, they are two big brothers." Pyrotechnic Glow said without blushing. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes and said, "Do you miss them or the divine brew?" Ah! Pyrotechnic Glow looked at Qin Feiyong in shock. Even this little trick couldn't escape this person's eyes. Princess Huifeng's face also darkened. She slapped Pyrotechnic Glow's forehead and said angrily, "What time is it now? You still want a drink?" "No, this is all nonsense from Qin Dage. Do you really believe it?" Pyrotechnic Glow felt wronged. "With your little trick, who can you hide it from?" Princess Huifeng rolled her eyes at him. Hu Wenchang looked at this scene and couldn't help but smile. It seemed that his precious daughter and son were getting along better with Qin Feiyong's group than he had imagined. Suddenly, Hu Wenchang seemed to have thought of something. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "Can you ask Golden-Winged Wolf King to come out now? I want to talk to him." Ah! Qin Feiyong and Princess Huifeng immediately looked at Hu Wenchang. Why did he suddenly want to look for the white-eyed wolf? Cough, cough. Daifuku coughed dryly, looked at the two of them, and said, "I have already told the patriarch about the princess and the Golden-Winged Wolf King." "You've already told him?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. Princess Huifeng was also stunned. A trace of worry crept onto her face as she secretly said, "Daifuku, why are you so talkative?" "We'll find out sooner or later anyway." Daifuku smiled embarrassedly. Princess Huifeng stared at Daifuku, then looked at Hu Wenchang and said, "Father, listen to my explanation." "There's nothing to explain. As long as you're happy." Hu Wenchang shook his head. This, Princess Huifeng was stunned again. Today, her father had become too easy to talk to. Pyrotechnic Glow shouted from the side, "Sis, is this true? Boss Wolf has become my brother-in-law." "Get lost." Princess Huifeng kicked Pyrotechnic Glow, causing him to cry out in pain. Then she looked at Hu Wenchang and asked carefully, "You really don't object?" "Daifuku already said that you two like each other and like each other. Why would I object?" Hu Wenchang shook his head. "Thank you, father." Princess Huifeng was overjoyed. She had finally passed her father's test. Now, she only needed to pass her father's test. If it was in the past, besides her father, there was also Huo Dahong, the patriarch, and Feng Ho. Just thinking about it gave her a headache. Don't say it. Leaving the Feng people was also quite good, because there was no burden. She didn't have to worry about anything anymore. She could do whatever she wanted. "If that's the case, I should change the way I address you as uncle." Qin Feiyong laughed. In his heart, he was sincerely happy for the two of them. Chapter 3873. Qin Dage, I don't understand. It's my sister and Big Brother Wolf who are in love. Why are you changing your address? Pyrotechnic Glow scratched his head and looked at Qin Feiyong with a puzzled expression. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. "I changed my address to uncle, and White-Eyed Wolf changed his address to father-in-law. How can it be the same? Besides, it's too distant to keep addressing each other as senior." Pyrotechnic Glow was stunned. That's right. Princess Huifeng sighed helplessly and looked at Qin Feiyong. "Don't talk nonsense with this fool. It'll lower your intelligence." "Sister, you're going too far." "How can you say that to your own brother? Are all women in love like this?" Pyrotechnic Glow said angrily. Princess Huifeng's veins bulged and she shouted, "Try talking nonsense again." Seeing that the tigress was angry, Pyrotechnic Glow shrunk his neck and said with a smile, "I won't dare. You guys continue. I'll go take a walk." After saying that, he turned around and disappeared. Princess Huifeng was really helpless towards this brother of hers. Hu Wenchang was also helpless. He looked at Qin Feiyang apologetically and said, "Brother Qin, my son is a bit unruly. I hope you can forgive him." "I'm used to it." Qin Feiyang waved his hand. "Used to it?" Hu Wenchang was stunned. "Patriarch, you don't know. His Highness was also like this when he was in the Black Tortoise world, so everyone is used to it. And Qin Feiyang and the others are more casual people. They won't care so much." Daifuka smiled. "So that's how it is." Hu Wenchang suddenly understood. "Father, in the future, you'd better not call him Brother Qin. This is a bit messy." Princess Huifeng lowered her head and smiled embarrassedly. "Ah." Hu Wenchang looked at Princess Huifeng and was stunned for a moment. He shook his head and smiled. "What's wrong with that? You're in love with the golden-winged wolf king, not Brother Qin. But they are brothers. When the time comes, one will be your son-in-law, and the other will be your brother." "What kind of joke is that?" Princess Huifeng was displeased. "Son-in-law? We haven't even gotten married yet, and you're already impatient." "My daughter, you were indeed born to belong to another family. You haven't even gotten married, but you're already siding with others." Hu Wenchang shook his head sadly. "When did I?" Princess Huifeng blushed. Hu Wenchang shook his head and laughed. After pondering for a moment, he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "How about I call you nephew from now on?" "All right." Qin Feiyang nodded. It was just a title. It didn't matter. Hu Wenchang looked at the Daifuku brothers and sighed. "Daifuku, Xiaofu, don't call me Patriarch from now on. I'm no longer the Patriarch." "Okay, then we'll call you Patriarch already." As for the two princes, they'll be young Master and young Mississippi. Daifuku smiled slightly. "No need. In the future, you can just call me by my name. After all, I've never treated you as outsiders, and I've always seen how you care for Wu-Er and Zihui. In the past, when we were in Feng people, we had no choice but to follow the rules. But now it's different. We're alone. From now on, we'll be a family. You can also call Wu-Er and Zihui by their nicknames. Moreover, in terms of age, I have to call you two brothers." Hu Wenchang waved his hand and smiled. Then Daifuku looked at Hu Wenchang, then at Princess Huifeng. Seeing Princess Huifeng nod slightly, he smiled and said, "All right." Hu Wenchang turned to Qin Feiyang and said, "Nephew, can you let Golden-Winged Wolf King come out now?" "Don't worry, I won't make things difficult for him." Qin Feiyang looked at the ancient castle and shook his head. "He's in seclusion to fuse with the inheritance, so let's not disturb him." Fusing with the inheritance? Hu Wenchang was stunned, then suddenly slapped his head. He remembered that Daifuku said that the blood ancestor had given Golden-Winged Wolf King an ultimate inheritance. He nodded and said, "It's my fault. All right, let's wait until he comes out." Daifuku looked at Princess Huifeng and said, "Why don't you go into seclusion to fuse with the inheritance first? As for your father, we'll take good care of him." Then Princess Huifeng looked at the Daifuku brothers and nodded. "All right, then I'll have to trouble you." "No problem." Both of them smiled. Qin Feiyang said, "Uncle, I also have to go into seclusion, so I won't be able to receive you personally." "It's fine." Hu Wenchang waved his hand. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Daifuku and smiled. "You're already familiar with the Black Tortoise world. Bring Uncle around for a stroll. As for your residence, pick one of the courtyards over there. Also, the tea garden has a lot of good tea. If Uncle is bored, you can go there and drink some tea. In short, there's no need to be reserved." Hu Wenchang and Daifuku nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at the fire python and smiled. "Brother Hua, I don't need to say anything more. Just do as you wish." "Got it." After I fuse with the law miniature, I'll go to other places in the black tortoise world. The fire python smiled. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at Bing Running. What do you want to do? Bing Running looked at Qin Feiyang nervously. No, what do I want to do to you? It's him. Qin Feiyang pointed at the demon ancestor beside him. Bing Running immediately looked at the demon ancestor. The blood ancestor didn't say anything and just smiled. However, in Bing Running's eyes, that smile was like a demon smiling at her, making her shudder. You deal with it yourself. Qin Feiyang looked at the demon ancestor and smiled. All right. The demon ancestor grabbed Bing Running and left the devil's land without looking back. Nephew, who is he? Wen Chang looked suspiciously at the demon ancestor's back. A strong enemy in the past. The future is long. Uncle, take your time to understand. Qin Feiyang smiled and led Princess Huifeng to the ancient castle. The fire phoenix sword and the other sovereign divine weapons disappeared into Princess Huifeng's body. Thank you. Princess Huifeng looked at Qin Feiyang gratefully. Why are you thanking me? I should be thanking you. With you joining us, the black tortoise world will become stronger. Qin Feiyang smiled. When first Princess Huifeng heard this, she was silent for a while before she sighed and said, Although I've left the phoenixes now, I might not be able to kill them. I understand. Don't worry, I won't let you do such a thing. Besides, do the Feng people need your help now? Qin Feiyang said domineeringly. Princess Huifeng was stunned and couldn't help but laugh. That's right. With Qin Feiyang's current means, not to mention the Feng people. Even if the Feng people, the Kirin clan, and the dragons joined forces, they wouldn't be able to threaten him. Oh, right. I still don't know your name. Qin Feiyang looked at Princess Huifeng. You finally remembered to ask? Princess Huifeng shook her head speechlessly. After being together for so long, he had never asked for her name. This attitude was really good. She said, Fire dance. Fire dance, Qin Feiyang murmured and smiled. Then, I'll leave the white-eyed wolf to you. Although the white-eyed wolf was unreliable in the past, I can clearly feel the changes in him after being together with you. However, you can't be careless. You have to give him a warning at all times. If he hears this, I'm afraid he'll fall out with you on the spot. Princess Huifeng covered her mouth and laughed. Fall out? Never. Don't be fooled by our usual bickering. But the affection between us is something that no one can shake. Qin Feiyang shook his head. I believe that. Fire Dance nodded, because the white-eyed wolf had already told her about him and Qin Feiyang. They grew up together, and no matter what difficulties they encountered, they had never abandoned each other. This affection was something that even she, as his lover, couldn't replace. Oh, right. Later, send your father, Xiao Fu, and your brother the epitome of the laws that they need. Qin Feiyang said again. Thank you. Princess Huifeng was stunned and smiled gratefully again. Sooner or later, we'll be family. What are you thanking me for? Qin Feiyang waved his hand and entered the castle. He walked to the door of the cultivation room and pointed at the cultivation room next to it. This is the White-Eyed Wolf's cultivation room. You can go to his cultivation room to cultivate in seclusion later. Okay. Princess Huifeng blushed and nodded. After Qin Feiyang handed the epitome to Princess Huifeng, he closed the stone door of the cultivation room and began to focus on fusing the ultimate profundity of the law of light. The Phoenix Empress had only grasped 3 ultimate profundities. As for Qin Feiyang, although he had mastered the ultimate profundity of the law of karma, the ultimate profundity of the law of life and death was enough to compete with the ultimate profundity of a supreme law. Therefore, as long as he fused with the law of light, he wouldn't be weaker than Feng, even if he didn't open the eye of heaven. Outside, the Feng people were gone. No one knew where they were hiding and crying secretly. The people of the other forces also returned to their respective cave residences, one after another. This matter was bound to become a hot topic of discussion. At the Qilin clan, at the peak of the mountain in the main hall, Qi Shaoyan stood in the middle of the hall and looked at the Qilin master, who was sitting on the throne with his head lowered and a nervous expression on his face. "What are you nervous about?" the Qilin master asked after observing Qi Shaoyan for a while. Qi Shaoyan's eyes trembled and he clenched his teeth. He had to face what he had to face. He looked at the Qilin master and said, "Ancestor, I'll be honest." "What is it?" the Qilin master asked. Qi Shaoyan smiled bitterly and said, "Didn't you already have a premonition?" "In that case, the sovereign weapons like the Qilin sword have indeed acknowledged you as their master, just like the Feng people's sovereign weapons?" the Qilin master asked. Qi Shaoyan could clearly sense a trace of anger from the Qilin master. He braced himself and nodded. "Yes. Then why didn't you tell me earlier? Why did you wait until I asked?" the Qilin master asked angrily. Qi Shaoyan sighed and said, "I didn't dare. This is too serious. I was afraid of angering you. But I'm even angrier now." The Qilin master slammed his palm on the armrest, and a terrifying aura surged out. Chapter 3874. Qi Shaoyun's body trembled, and he hurriedly said, "Ancestor, please calm down. This matter is giving me a headache as well." Indeed, he was having a headache. She could have lived an easy and carefree life. However, Qin Feiyang had no choice but to force him to the heart of the struggle. A headache! The Qilin master felt like laughing. He looked at Qi Shaoyun and said indifferently, "Isn't it a good thing for the sovereigns to acknowledge you as their master? Do you know how many people dream of that?" "Ancestor, please don't laugh at me," said Qi Shaoyun. "Don't you know what kind of person I am? I'm not interested in that at all." Qi Shaoyun sighed. Wasn't it nice to drink tea and take a stroll? The Qilin master looked at Qi Shaoyun helplessly. This descendant of his was good at everything. His only flaw was that he stood aloof from worldly affairs and was too indifferent to fame and fortune. "Ancestor, to tell you the truth, Qin Feiyang forced me to do this. He made the divine Qilin swords and other sovereigns swear a blood oath to acknowledge me as their master. Do you think he's doing this out of goodwill?" "No. He's trying to trick me, forcing me to make a choice on behalf of the Qilin race." Qi Shaoyan shook his head. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. The Qilin master sank into silence. So that was the case. "Sigh. Although I was forced to do this, if the ancestor wants to blame me, I am willing to accept any punishment." Qi Shaoyan sighed. "Stop putting on an act with me." The Qilin master rolled his eyes. Qi Shaoyan smiled awkwardly. After thinking about it for a bit, the Qilin master shook his head and sighed. "Looks like Qin Feiyang recognizes your ability. Otherwise, he wouldn't have placed all his bets on you. What ability can I have?" Qi Shaoyan laughed dryly. "It's good to be humble, but being too humble is hypocrisy. Others might not know about your ability, but how can I not know? Even without this, the future of the Qilin race will still fall on your shoulders." The Qilin master smiled. "Huh." Qi Shaoyan looked at the Qilin master and asked, "Aren't you angry? How can you say something like that?" "I'm angry because you hid it from me. If you had confessed as soon as you came back, would I have blamed you?" The Qilin master glared at him. "Sure enough, old ancestor is sensible. You're much better than that Feng Ho." Qi Shaoyan chuckled. "Stop flattering me." The Qilin lord couldn't help but feel helpless. To tell the truth, who could sit still in the face of such a thing? But what was done couldn't be undone. The sovereign's divine weapons had already acknowledged this brat as their master. What else could he do? However, fortunately, whether it was him or his clansmen, this kid was quite sentimental. In layman's terms, it meant that there was no disloyalty. It didn't matter that the sovereign weapon was under his control. Anyway, as long as he wasn't as selfish as Feng Ho, as long as the Qilin clan wasn't as unreasonable as the Feng people, these sovereign divine weapons would still belong to the Qilin clan. Speaking of which, I have to thank Qin Feiyang. The Kirins chuckled. Thank him. Qi Shaoyan was stunned. Yes. If he hadn't forced you to do so, I don't know when you would have stood up and taken on this responsibility. Just work hard. Regardless of our relationship with Qin Feiyang in the future, at least from this point, it can be seen that he has already regarded you as a worthy opponent. Actually, this is good. After all, the future belongs to you youngsters. It's time for us old fellows to step aside. The Qilin master laughed hoarsely. Qi Shaoyan was touched by those words. Indeed, it was indeed different to have a sensible senior. If Feng Ho was also a reasonable senior, would Princess Huifeng have betrayed the Feng people? Would the Feng people have fallen to their current state? This was the result of a momentary lapse in judgment. But in truth, I don't want to. Qi Shaoyan felt helpless. He still yearned for his previous life. He was like a wild crane, carefree and carefree. How nice was that? Everyone has to grow up, said the Qilin master. You are no exception. Moreover, compared to ordinary people, you have more on your shoulders. That's because you were born in such an environment. The Qilin master smiled. Don't you still have father and the patriarchs? In truth, even if the sovereign weapon is in my hands, it won't affect me much, said Qi Shaoyan. That's right. How can their abilities be compared to yours? Moreover, you have already fused with the ultimate profundity of the law of destruction. You have also obtained the miniature versions of other laws. Your future accomplishments will definitely surpass theirs. The Qilin master smiled confidently. All right, I'll work hard. Qi Shaoyan nodded. He knew he couldn't escape. That's more like it. A man should take on the responsibility of a man. The Qilin master chuckled. Qi Shaoyan smiled bitterly and asked, What about the Qilin Holy Sun? The Qilin Holy Sun, the Qilin master pondered for a bit before smiling. You can deal with that yourself. I'll deal with it? Qi Shaoyan was astonished. Was the Qilin master not doing anything? Ancestor, this isn't right. You should at least give me some time to get used to it. Originally, I guess, I kept the Fire Qilin because I wanted him to integrate with the Qilin race. But in the end, I discovered that I had greatly underestimated his relationship with Qin Feiyang. If he had a choice, he would definitely choose Qin Feiyang without hesitation. Fine. Some things can't be forced. The Qilin master shook his head and sighed. Then why do you want him to stay with the Qilin race? Qi Shaoyan asked doubtfully. The Qilin race didn't seem to lack a Fire Qilin. It's my intuition. This Fire Qilin is different from us, said the Qilin master. Qi Shaoyan frowned. Different? Qi Shaoyan frowned. He had interacted with the Fire Qilin before, but frankly speaking, he couldn't find anything different about it. In the blink of an eye, several years passed. That night, two terrifying auras erupted one after another in the black tortoise world. They were none other than Feng Zi and Qin Feiyang. They had fused with the laws of light and slaughter, so they were faster than the white-eyed wolf and Princess Huifeng. On the same day, the dragons, a terrifying murderous aura, also erupted from a cave abode. It was Long Qin. He had also successfully fused with the law of slaughter. Haha, with 3 ultimate profundities, who else can be my match now? Feng Zi came out of seclusion, and his arrogant laughter resounded throughout the entire black tortoise world. Don't be cocky. With your current strength, you're not even as strong as Feng Ho and the others. Qin Feiyang walked out and angrily glared at him. TSK, it's not like I don't have other methods. After I transform, I'll open my blood eye and crush them easily. Feng Zi's face was full of disdain. Qin Feiyong was helpless. Can't you keep a low profile? However, since he had already come to the Nether King's Hell, shouldn't he thoroughly investigate the mystery of Feng Zi's background? But how should he investigate? Suddenly, Qin Feiyong's mind flashed with an idea. He looked at Feng Zi and said, "Senior brother, why don't you go to the Moon of Evil to take a look?" Look at what? Feng Zi was suspicious. Qin Feiyong asked, "In the past, when you touched that blood bead in the Moon of Evil, did an image appear in your mind?" "Yes, but I couldn't see it clearly." Feng Zi nodded. "In the past, I couldn't see it clearly. It might have something to do with your cultivation. And now you have already grasped the three ultimate profundities. Maybe there will be some changes." Qin Feiyong wasn't sure. After all, this kind of thing was not within his scope of understanding. "Is that so?" Feng Zi frowned. "Whether there are gains or not, there's nothing wrong with trying." Qin Feiyong smiled. Feng Zi pondered for a moment and nodded. "All right, let's give it a try." The two hit it off, found the fire python, and left the black tortoise world. The fire python had already fused into a miniature, and he had already been traveling in the black tortoise world for a long time. Looking at this vast land, his heart had always been in a state of shock. Of course, the fire python knew about the black tortoise world, because back then the black tortoise world was on the first level of the miracle. To put it bluntly, the black tortoise world back then was simply a small place, not worth mentioning. But how many years had it been? It had actually become such a huge world. It was full of spiritual essence, rich in natural resources, and countless living creatures lived here. What made him envious the most was the atmosphere here. Calm, peaceful. Although there were countless living beings, killing was extremely rare, as if it was a paradise that stood aloof from worldly affairs. Outside, at this time, it was nighttime. The moon of evil hung high in the sky, emitting a hazy blood light. The mountains and rivers at night were very quiet. People from various forces were cultivating in seclusion. "It's the middle of the night. What do you want to do?" Long Chun walked out of the cave and walked towards the three with a smile. "What does it have to do with you?" Feng Zi rolled his eyes at him. "Don't be so cold. Maybe I can help." Long Chin chuckled. "No need." Feng Zi snorted coldly and raised his head to look at the Moon of Evil with a trace of expectation in his eyes. Long Chen walked to the side of the three and followed Feng Zi's gaze. There was a trace of suspicion on his face. Why was Feng Zi looking at the Moon of Evil? "Go." Qin Feiyong patted Feng Zi's shoulder encouragingly. Whoosh! Feng Zi took a deep breath and immediately turned into a stream of light, rushing towards the Moon of Evil. Fire Python looked at Feng Zi's back and smiled. "If we can really solve the mystery of his origin, I guess that the Nether King Hell might change because of this." "Change?" Qin Feiyong was slightly taken aback and said in surprise, "Could it be that the rule power here is related to the Blood Demon King?" "That's not it. The restrictions of the Nether King Hell have always existed since ancient times." But Fire Python couldn't help but frown. "But what?" Qin Feiyong was suspicious. "Ever since I became the guardian of the Underworld King's Hell, I have been investigating the situation of the Underworld King's Hell. From some clues, I judged that the Underworld King's Hell was not much different from other worlds, even though there were rules and restrictions before the catastrophe." Fire Python said. Chapter 3875. Other Aspects. Qin Feiyong was taken aback. "That's right. In the past, there was also human civilization living here." Fire Python nodded. "Human civilization." Qin Feiyong was shocked. "Yes. To tell you the truth, I found many traces left behind by human civilization in the divine demon forest. Fire Python said. Qin Feiyong frowned. That's impossible. I have also been to the divine demon forest, but I didn't see any human civilization. Although you have been there, do you have a comprehensive understanding of the divine demon forest? If I'm not wrong, when you entered the divine demon forest, you went straight to the temple. Because with your strength at that time, you didn't have the ability to set foot in the entire divine demon forest. Fire Python laughed. That's true. Qin Feiyong nodded. The divine demon forest was huge. When they entered, what they saw was just the tip of the iceberg. Fire Python suddenly looked at Long Chen and asked, as the son of Lord Ice Dragon, you should be very clear about the situation here. Me. Long Chen was taken aback and smiled bitterly. I'm the same as you, I don't know anything. All right. Fire Python was helpless. Was this guy really Ice Dragon's biological son? Long Chen said unhappily, what kind of look is that? Don't doubt this. He is definitely Ice Dragon's biological son. Fire Python smiled and looked at Qin Feiyong. Feather Emperor definitely knows. Why don't you ask him to come out and help us solve the doubts in our hearts? Let's talk about this later. Let's see how Senior Brother is doing first. Qin Feiyong looked up and focused on the evil moon. At this moment, Frenzy had entered the evil moon. Frenzy was already familiar with everything in the evil moon. Endless evil force surged. To any living being, this was fatal, but to Frenzy, it was like returning to his mother's embrace. Not only did he not feel threatened, but there was also a trace of warmth. Very soon, he entered the center of the evil moon. The blood bead that he hadn't seen for a long time once again entered his sight. It was the size of a palm and seemed to be condensed from blood, emitting a terrifying aura. If you are really related to me, please stop rejecting me and tell me the answer. The madman looked at the blood bead and muttered. He raised his arm and approached the blood bead. What a surprise! This time, not only did the blood bead not repel the madman, it even flew towards the madman and landed in his hand. Boom! There was a loud sound in the madman's mind, and the scene of a battlefield appeared. In the scene, a giant and a dragon were engaged in a frenzied battle. Heaven and earth were destroyed, and all living beings were plunged into misery and suffering. It was a scene of doomsday. This madman was stunned. At this moment, the image that appeared in his mind was no longer blurry. It was incomparably clear. Furthermore, the tearing pain that had been caused by the appearance of the battle scenes did not appear again. He was like a wandering soul, standing in an unfamiliar world, watching everything that was happening before his eyes. Heaven and earth were collapsing. Countless living beings were howling in despair. There were humans and ferocious beasts. This was a complete continent with verdant hills and limpid waters. The scenery was pleasant. However, at this moment, because of the confrontation between the giant and the dragon, it was rapidly heading towards destruction. Could this be the former Nether King Hell? The madman muttered, Why are you so cruel? Are they not living beings? The giant roared in grief as he fought. His eyes were filled with tears of blood, dyeing the world red. The madman looked at the giant. It was covered in blood-red hair, like an ancient giant ape. It was exactly the same as the transformed blood demon race. It was more like another him. Looking at the giant's tears of blood, the madman couldn't help but feel anger and sadness. It was as if he was connected to the giant's heart. In the eyes of my divine kingdom, all living beings are ants. Another cold voice sounded. Divine kingdom. The madman clenched his fists and looked at the giant dragon, because the one who spoke was the giant dragon. He didn't know if he didn't look, but when he looked, his mind buzzed. It was actually a purple gold divine dragon. That's right, it was a purple gold divine dragon. In the past, he couldn't see it clearly and could only see a vague outline. But now, Everything was clearly presented in his mind. The purple-gold divine dragon was tens of thousands of feet long. Its strength was sky-high. Every dragon scale and drop of dragon blood exuded a world-destroying divine power. Purple gold, divine dragon, blood demon king, the madman had an answer in his heart. The giant was the legendary blood demon king, and this purple gold divine dragon, without a doubt, was the leader of the divine nation's experts that the blood ancestor had mentioned back then who had led the invasion of the lower realm. The blood ancestor had said, back then, a divine kingdom powerhouse led a group of people from the divine kingdom to invade the lower realm. At that time, it was the blood demon king who led the blood demon race to intercept the nether king Hell. In the end, not only did the blood demon king die in battle, but the entire blood demon race was almost wiped out, and almost all the powerhouses of the divine kingdom died in battle. Only the leader returned to the divine kingdom with serious injuries. Judging from the scene, there was no doubt that this purple-gold divine dragon was the leader, and it was still alive. The bloody battle was still continuing. And, what a ridiculous word. All things in the world are equal. Every living being has its value. What right do you have to control the fate of others? As long as I am here today, you can forget about stepping into other continents. The blood demon king roared towards the sky. A blood-colored ancient tower soared into the sky, suppressing all directions. This was the blood demon tower. There were a total of 10 floors. And at the top of the tower there were 2 palm-sized blood beads that emitted a monstrous bloody light. Sovereign weapon. The madman's eyes trembled. The complete blood demon tower was indeed a sovereign weapon. The blood demon tower charged towards the purple-gold divine dragon with the power to destroy the world. Humph! The purple-gold divine dragon snorted. A purple-gold ancient palace appeared, with countless dragons roaring inside. Divine might filled the sky. This was also a sovereign weapon. Boom! The 2 sovereign weapons collided. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The sun and moon lost their light. The entire Nether King Hell instantly fell into a scene of destruction. The battle lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. The Nether King Hell was destroyed, and all living beings died. Only a few blood demons were left, but they were also on the verge of death. Looking at all of this, the blood demon king smiled bitterly. He had already tried his best, but he was still unable to protect the living beings of the Nether King Hell. Divine Kingdom, sooner or later, you will pay the price for today's actions. The blood demon king burned his own life force and turned into a demon god. He led the blood demon tower and crazily charged towards the purple-gold divine dragon. At this moment, the madman, as a bystander, also felt a tragic emotion in his heart. Drops of tears even fell from the corners of his eyes. Boom! With the collision between the blood demon king and the purple-gold divine dragon, everything finally came to an end. The blood demon king died on the spot. The blood demon tower was also torn apart. The purple-gold divine dragon also let out a miserable cry. Its body was shattered, and its divine soul was annihilated. The purple-gold ancient palace also shattered on the spot. Blood demons, just you wait. The next time the divine kingdom descends, your race will be exterminated. However, the purple-gold divine dragon's divine soul wasn't completely annihilated. Only a trace of it was left. After leaving behind a murderous sentence, it escaped with the broken ancient palace. I didn't expect that the battle back then would be so tragic. The madman murmured, "That's right. This is that battle." Suddenly, a voice sounded. "Who?" The madman was startled. Before his voice fell, a blood-red figure rushed out from the blood bead in his hand and floated in front of him. "You are." The madman looked at the blood shadow opposite him in surprise. "I am the artifact spirit of the blood demon tower," the blood shadow said. Artifact spirit? The madman was stunned. Yes. The blood shadow nodded. Artifact spirit? The madman's face was full of surprise. Didn't the blood demon tower already have an artifact spirit? Why did another one jump out? Because the blood demon tower had always been by his side and had communicated with the artifact spirit more than once. The other artifact spirit is also me. Back then, I was divided into two. Half of my consciousness was in the blood demon tower, and the other half was in this blood demon bead. The blood shadow explained. Then why didn't you tell me this? The madman frowned. Because you haven't grown up yet and don't have the ability to shoulder this heavy burden. But it's different now. You have already grasped 3 ultimate mysteries. In terms of strength, you have surpassed your previous life because in your previous life, you only grasped 1 ultimate law. The blood shadow smiled in relief. Previous life? The madman was stunned for a moment and looked at the blood shadow in shock. Don't tell me that I am the reincarnation of the blood demon king. Yes. The blood shadow nodded. Damn. The madman cursed. He was actually such an amazing person. The blood shadow hesitated for a moment and looked at the madman. Don't be proud too early. Now you have to face 2 choices. What choices? The madman was suspicious. The blood shadow said, the first choice is to inherit the memories and law inheritance of your previous life. What? The memories and law inheritance of my previous life? The madman was stunned. Yes. When you died, I sealed your memories and the ultimate profundities of the law of destruction that you grasped in this blood demon orb. As long as you are willing, you can fuse your memories and this inheritance now. The blood shadow smiled. The ultimate law of destruction, the madman muttered and shouted. Is there even a need to say this? Of course, this daddy is willing. Don't dawdle, hurry up. Cough, cough. The blood shadow coughed and said helplessly, don't be anxious. Let me finish. If you really fuse with the memories of your previous life, this may affect your relationship with Qin Feiyang. What does fusing with the memories of my previous life have to do with old Qin? The madman was suspicious. Because Qin Feiyang is the descendant of the purple gold divine dragon, and your previous life hated the divine kingdom and the purple gold divine dragon to the bone. Therefore, if you fuse with the memories of your previous life, it may have a certain impact on you. The blood shadow explained. You mean, after fusing with the memories of my previous life, I will hate old Qin? The madman asked. Yes. The blood shadow nodded. Impossible. I know old Qin's situation better than anyone else. Even if he has the bloodline of the purple gold divine dragon, it won't have any impact. The madman waved his hand with a confident look. Chapter 3876. Are you sure? Blood Shadow asked. I'm sure. Madman nodded, but after speaking, he hesitated and asked, what about the second choice? The second choice is, of course, to give up the memories and inheritance of your previous life. This way, you won't be affected by the memories of your previous life and will still be as close as brothers with Qin Feiyang. Blood Shadow said. Madman nodded and asked, then I can't just take the inheritance and not the memories of my previous life? No, the situation was urgent, so I fused the inheritance and memories together. Blood Shadow shook his head. Why are you so unreliable? Madman was speechless. Can you blame me for this? You saw it just now. When your previous life's blood demon king was about to die, I almost couldn't even protect myself. To be able to keep your inheritance and memories in such a dangerous situation is already very difficult. Do you understand? Blood Shadow said angrily. Madman smiled embarrassedly. After pondering for a while, he said with a firm gaze, I must take the inheritance, and I will definitely not lose old Qin as a friend. Don't worry. Don't be so confident. Fusing the memories of your previous life isn't as simple as you think. At that time, there might even be a split personality. Blood Shadow warned. Split personality? The corner of Madman's mouth twitched. With a dark expression, he said, "Can you not scare me? My feelings for old Cheen." "Pooey, pooey, pooey, he isn't even a girl. What feelings do I have? In short, my friendship with old Cheen will never change. Since you are so confident, then I won't say anything else. Anyway, you just have to be mentally prepared." After Blood Shadow finished speaking, he immediately disappeared into the blood bead. Then, the blood bead rose into the air and entered between Madman's eyebrows. Boom! A huge amount of information suddenly exploded in Madman's mind. "Old Cheen, don't worry about me. I am fine now. Go do what you need to do." Madman shouted and sat cross-legged. He closed his eyes and accepted the memories and inheritance of his previous life. What's the situation? Below, Qin Feiyong and Fire Python exchanged glances. Long Chen asked, "Why don't we go and take a look?" "Don't go." Qin Feiyong hurriedly stopped him. Madman had already said that he was fine, so why bother? Furthermore, what if the madman had obtained some good fortune and caught Long Chen's attention? That would be bad. Qin Feiyong's vigilance made Long Chen feel rather helpless. In the current situation, there was really no need to guard against him like this. The Fire Python asked, "When do you plan to return to the Sky Cloud Realm?" Qin Feiyong looked at Long Chen. Long Chen shrugged and said, "I can do it any time." In any case, he meant to let Qin Feiyong make the decision. Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment. It was indeed time to go back, because the God-slaying tablet was still waiting to transcend its tribulation. But once he went back, he would definitely face the experts of the Divine Kingdom. Furthermore, the Blaze Magic Sword had not been repaired yet. So, he was not confident about going back now. "I'll go to the Black Tortoise Realm first." After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyong looked at Long Chen and said something. Then he instantly disappeared without a trace. Long Chen also looked up at the evil moon again and murmured, "What the hell is going on?" At the same time, the Fire Python looked at Long Chen. It seemed to have something to say, but didn't dare to say it. "What do you want to say?" Long Chen noticed the Fire Python's abnormality and turned his head to ask, "This, ahem. Can I ask you for a favor?" The Fire Python asked. "What favor?" Long Chen was suspicious. "You are the son of Lord Ice Dragon. You can definitely say something. Can you ask Lord Ice Dragon to remove the restrictions of the rules of hell?" The Fire Python's face was full of pleading. Remove the restrictions of the rules? Long Chen was taken aback. Yes, the creatures of hell, no matter how they cultivate, their cultivation can only reach the 9th heaven realm. They can't reach the undead realm. This is really pitiful. The Fire Python sighed. "So that's how it is." Long Chen suddenly understood and said with a smile, "You're quite kind as a guardian." This was because guardians generally gave people the impression that they were high and mighty and looked down on creatures like ants. Not at all. Anyway, I'm just putting myself in your shoes. The Fire Python shook its head. Long Chen asked, "Then, according to what you said, the restrictions here were set by my father." "I don't know about that. But even if it's not Lord Ice Dragon, Lord Ice Dragon must have a way." The Fire Python's face was full of expectation. This, Long Chen thought for a while and shook his head. "I can't guarantee anything. I can only tell you that I'll try my best. After all, I don't have much say in my father's words. Besides, my father is not omnipotent. Anyway, don't get your hopes up. Besides, since there are restrictions in a place, there must be a reason for its existence." Long Chen added, "Yes, thank you." The Fire Python nodded and smiled gratefully. Whoosh! Qin Feiyong came out, along with him with a Feather Emperor. the little rabbit, and the blood ancestor. Qin Feiyang entered the Black Tortoise realm because of the little brat. How long would it take for the blaze magic sword to be repaired? The answer he got made him feel extremely helpless. The little brat said that even in the land of origin, it would take at least 100 years for the blaze magic sword to be restored to its peak state. How could he afford to wait 100 years? Therefore, he found the little rabbit, the feather emperor, and the blood ancestor to discuss. The four of them discussed for a while and decided to go back to the sky cloud realm to take a look. It seems that this little lunatic has already decided. The feather emperor looked up at the evil moon and shook his head with a smile. Decided. Qin Feiyang was stunned. You'll know in the future. The feather emperor did not explain. Qin Feiyang was full of helplessness. When it came to keeping people in suspense, one was better than the other. He asked, "What kind of place is the former Nether King's hell?" The former Nether King's hell. The feather emperor pondered for a while and sighed. Apart from the rules and restrictions, everything else is the same as other continents. There were countless humans and ferocious beasts, but now they're all history. All of this was caused by the divine kingdom. When he said the last sentence, a cold light surged in the feather emperor's eyes. The divine kingdom. How crazy are these people? Qin Feiyang couldn't help but clench his hands. The blood ancestor looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "The damage that the divine kingdom caused to the sky cloud realm and the Nether King's hell can never be repaired. Therefore, from now on, you can't show mercy to anyone from the divine kingdom." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Then let's go. It's been more than 10 years. It's time to go back and take a look." The little rabbit said. Long Chin took out the badge and opened a space-time passage. The few of them walked in one after another, but the fire python didn't go and stayed on the mountain peak. Did they return to the sky cloud realm? There won't be any danger, right? Don't worry, the feather emperor, blood ancestor, and the little rabbit. Even if there is danger, it shouldn't be a problem to protect themselves. When the various major forces noticed the situation here, they all felt a little nervous, because whether they can return to the sky cloud realm or not depends on the ability of Qin Feiyang and the others. If even Qin Feiyang and the others can't stop the powerhouses of the divine kingdom, then they can only hide in the Nether King's hell forever. Boom! But just as the space-time passage disappeared, a terrifying aura erupted from a mountain. A figure rushed into the sky and went straight for the evil moon. "Feng Ho, what are you doing?" The fire python's face changed and shouted. "It's none of your business. Get lost." Feng Ho coldly shouted, and the power of law surged all over her body. Obviously, she knew that Madman was inside. Although she didn't know what Madman was doing inside, it was a great opportunity for her. But to her, this was an excellent opportunity because if Qin Feiyang and the others left, there would be no one to help the Madman. In short, she wanted to take the opportunity to kill Madman. However, before she could even get close, a wave of evil energy appeared and rushed towards her from all directions. Humph! Feng Ho coldly snorted, and the ultimate profundities of the law of destruction and the law of space appeared and attacked the evil force. With a loud bang, the evil force was annihilated. Despicable! The fire python said angrily. However, he couldn't interfere in a battle of this level. "Phoenix Queen, you're fucking courting death." Madman's shout sounded in the evil moon. But before Madman could make a move, a young man in white walked out of a cave. It was Qi Shaoyan. He stepped into the sky, looked at the evil moon, and said with a smile, "Brother Amo, don't worry and enter seclusion. Leave her to me." Qi Shaoyan's action was equivalent to making a decision. "Qi Shaoyan, what are you doing?" Feng Ho turned and glared at Qi Shaoyan. Qi Shaoyan sighed and said, "Feng Ho, stop. People who don't know you will think that you are a mad dog. You are courting death." Feng Ho's killing intent rose, and she immediately attacked Qi Xiaoyan with two ultimate profundities. Sigh. Qi Xiaoyan sighed. With a wave of his hand, the Qilin divine sword and other sovereign weapons appeared. Terrifying divine might surged out like a torrent, and the two ultimate profundities were shattered. Feng Ho looked at this scene in shock and anger. The sovereign weapons of the Qilin clan were all in this person's hands. Qi Xiaoyan smiled and said, "The current me can represent the entire Qilin clan." "You? The entire Qilin clan?" Feng Ho couldn't believe it. "That's right." Qi Xiaoyan nodded. "Qi Xiaoyan, who gave you the guts to say such words?" At this time, Qi Xiong, Qi Yifeng, and the other patriarchs appeared and glared at Qi Xiaoyan. They were still unaware of the conversation between the Qilin master and Qi Xiaoyan. Thus, in their opinion, Qi Xiaoyan's words were disgraceful. As for Qi Xiaoyan's father, Qi Ji, the patriarch of the Fire Qilin clan, he also walked out of the cave. However, he did not interfere. As Qi Xiaoyan's father, he was naturally aware of Qi Xiaoyan's situation. If it was in the past, he would definitely stand behind Qi Xiaoyan and become his backer. But things were different now. Qi Xiaoyan was now stronger than him. Moreover, Qi Xiaoyan had the support of the ancestor of the Qilin clan. Naturally, Qi Xiaoyan no longer needed him. "Second uncle, stop messing around." Qi Xiaoyan lowered his head and shook his head. "I'm messing around?" Qi Xiong was furious. He glared at Qi Ji and said, "Aren't you going to teach your son a lesson?" However, Qi Ji merely smiled faintly. Chapter 38-77. Qi Xiong was infuriated by Qi Ji's attitude. Although he was Qi Ji's brother, and Qi Xiaoyan was his nephew, he had always disliked Qi Ji and his father. He believed that, in terms of strength and ability, Qi Ji was no weaker than his elder brother. But in the end, the patriarch position of the Fire Qilin clan had fallen into Qi Ji's hands. That made him feel very uneasy. As for Qi Xiaoyan, he had displayed outstanding talent since he was young. Although he usually kept a low profile, he was deeply liked by the Qilin clan's master. Whenever there was something good, he would not be forgotten. On the other hand, his son, Qi Yu, was different. Although he was known as the young genius of the Qilin clan, his treatment was worlds apart from Qi Xiaoyan's. In short, he was jealous. "Second uncle, go back and cultivate." Qi Xiaoyan was rather annoyed when he saw Qi Xiong. This was the reason why he had always disliked fighting for fame and fortune. As long as fame and fortune were involved, even family members would treat you as an enemy. Although his second uncle did not like him much in the past, he still knew how to act on the surface. Normally, when they met, he would more or less pretend to be concerned. But now he could not even be bothered to act on the surface. Whether it was his hatred for him or his father, he could no longer hide it. "What? Are you trying to order me around?" Qi Xiong looked at Qi Xiaoyan coldly. "How is this an order? I'm begging you, don't meddle in other people's business." Qi Xiaoyan felt helpless. "Meddling in other people's business? What about you? What does what Feng Ho does have to do with you? You actually dare to speak on behalf of the Qilin clan? Who do you think you are? Even elders like us are not qualified to speak like that, let alone you." Qi Xiong retorted. Qi Yifeng and the other patriarchs also had cold expressions on their faces. Qi Xiaoyan glanced at them and shook his head. "Looks like it's impossible to reason with you." Boom! As he said that, a destructive force surged out. Qi Xiaoyan's temperament changed greatly with the appearance of the destructive force. His gaze and aura became incomparably sharp. "What are you trying to do? Don't tell me I'm going to be like some people and go against my superiors." Qi Xiong and the others were shocked. They knew that Qi Xiaoyan had already fused with an ultimate profundity of the law of destruction. With Qi Xiaoyan's current strength, he could easily suppress them even without using a sovereign weapon. As for the someone, she was naturally referring to Princess Hoofing. Go back immediately. Don't make me repeat myself. Qi Xiaoyun's cold gaze was as sharp as a blade, causing everyone to feel a chill in their hearts. Even Feng He was looking at Qi Xiaoran in shock, let alone Qi Xiong and the others. She naturally knew about Qi Xiaoyan. In the past, the impression Qi Xiaoyan gave others was that he was a young man who stood aloof from worldly affairs. But now he was like a completely different person, showing off his abilities, full of drive. It was like a dazzling star. This should be Qi Xiaoyun's true nature. Go back immediately. Don't make me repeat myself. These words echoed in the void for a long time. This was already a commanding tone. Although Qi Xiaoyan was giving Qi Xiong and the others a great pressure, they did not back down because they were his elders. So what if he had grasped the ultimate profundity of the law of destruction? Would he really dare to make a move on his elders in public? If he dared to do so, not only would others talk about him behind his back, even the ancestor would not let him off easily. Sigh. Qi Xiaoyan sighed deeply. Did he really have to disown his own family if he wanted to shoulder this responsibility? To be honest, he really did not want to make a move on his elders. But sometimes he had no choice. Xiaoyan, do you know why the ancestor is still not doing anything? Suddenly, Qi Ji's voice rang out in Qi Xiaoyan's mind. Qi Xiaoyan raised his head and looked at the great hall at the peak of the mountain. With such a huge commotion, the ancestor was definitely aware of it. Since the ancestor had not done anything, it was obvious he wanted to give Qi Xiaoran a chance to establish his dominance. If he wanted the Qilin clansmen to trust him, he would first have to make the patriarchs submit. In other words, the ancestor wanted him to make a move on the patriarchs to establish his dominance. Looks like the ancestor is determined to be a hands-off boss. Qi Xiaoyun sighed helplessly. He lowered his head and looked at Qi Xiong and the others. His eyes instantly turned cold. Boom! The next moment, the heavenly eye of destruction erupted with a world-destroying might. 10 rays of world-destroying light shattered the sky and shot toward Qi Xiong and the others. What? Qi Xiong and the others did not expect that Qi Xiaoyan would really dare to make a move on them. In a moment of desperation, they all activated their profundities. However, their strength was not even comparable to the reclusive old antiques. The strongest technique they had was the profundities of supreme profundities. How could they be a match for the ultimate profundities of supreme profundities? Boom! Accompanied by a series of loud bangs, the profundities of various laws were instantly shattered, like withered trees. Next, 10 rays of world-destroying light drowned Qi Xiong and the others. Ah! Accompanied by miserable screams. Everyone was instantly turned into a bloody mess. Their sea of qi was shattered, and even their souls were severely injured. An aura of death enveloped them. At this moment, they panicked inwardly. This junior, who had always followed the rules and stood aloof from worldly affairs, was not joking with them at all. Ancestor. The group of people shouted in panic. Currently, only the Qilin clan's master had the ability to stop Qi Xiaoyan. As for the reclusive old antiques, even if all of them showed up, it would be useless. However, the Qilin master did not appear. He did not even respond. What's going on? Could it be that the ancestor is in seclusion? The group of people was bewildered. At the same time, they were extremely terrified. Qi Xiaoyan looked on silently. Qi Xiaoyan, what are you doing? Although you are strong now, you can't attack your elders. Stop! Or else, although the Qilin master did not appear, the group of reclusive old antiques could no longer sit still. They all came out to scold Qi Xiaoyan. Or else what? Qi Xiaoyan looked at the old antiques coldly. The scolding stopped abruptly. Looking at the current Qi Xiaoyan, the group of old antiques could not help but feel fear in their hearts. Qi Xiaoyan said, stand aside obediently. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. What did you say? Impolite to us? Do you still know how to respect the old and cherish the young? The group of old antiques was instantly infuriated. So it was true that after grasping the ultimate profundity, one could do whatever they wanted. Noisy! Qi Shaoyan waved his hand, and one apocalyptic radiance after another fell, drowning the reclusive old antiques. Miserable shrieks rang out once again. Blood dyed the sky red. Damn! So this is the prince of the Fire Qilin clan. His ferocity is not inferior to that of Qin Feiyang and the others. The people of the various factions were moved. The sleeping lion has finally awakened. In the future, there will be another peerless genius among the younger generation of the Skycloud realm. Those of the older generation were also muttering in their hearts. Qi Shaoyun's ruthless side shocked everyone present. Although the patriarch and the old antiques of the Qilin clan did not die in the end, this ability had left a shadow in their hearts. Of course, Qi Shaoren would not kill them for real. Moreover, more importantly, the Qilin master did not appear at all. No one was stupid. With such a big commotion, even if the Qilin master was in seclusion, he must have been awakened by it. The reason he did not appear was actually a tacit agreement. The Phoenix Empress had naturally thought of this as well. Looking at Qi Shaoyun's domineering attitude, she knew that it was impossible to kill Madman, so she turned around and left angrily. Of course she was angry. The alliance of the three clans was supposed to deal with Qin Feiyang, but now the Dragon King sat by and did nothing. The Qilin master was even more excessive. He directly handed over the power of the Qilin clan to Qi Shaoyan and became a shopkeeper. After a contest, although the dragons and the Qilin clan also lost some sovereign divine weapons, compared to the Feng people who lost all their sovereign divine weapons and lost face, it was many times better. Therefore, in Feng Ho's heart, not only did she hate Qin Feiyang and the others, but she also hated the dragons and the Qilin clan. At the same time, the Skycloud realm. The Skycloud sea was unprecedentedly calm. White Crane Island. This island that no longer existed was quite famous in the current Skycloud realm. That was because too many battles had taken place here. At this moment, above the sea, a group of people stood facing the wind. It was Qin Feiyang, Long Chen, Feather Emperor, Blood Ancestor, and the Little Rabbit. Why are we here? Qin Feiyang glanced at the surrounding sea and asked suspiciously. Long Chen smiled and said, "As expected, there must be experts from the Divine Kingdom guarding Skycloud Island at this moment, so we have to avoid them." Hearing this, Qin Feiyang turned to look at the little rabbit. The little rabbit waved its paw, and an image appeared in the void in front of it. The scene displayed was Skycloud Island. Sure enough, at the peak of Skycloud Island, a golden figure was sitting cross-legged. It was the middle-aged man in golden armor who chased them back then. Qin Feiyang glanced at the middle-aged man in golden armor, then looked at Long Chen and said with a smile, "Quite clever." Long Chen was speechless, listening to what you said. "It seems that in your eyes before I was a fool?" Qin Feiyang smiled and turned to look in the direction of the land of buried gods. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he looked at Feather Emperor and the other two and said, "Now he's alone on Skycloud Island. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Why don't we kill him first?" "How can it be so simple?" The little rabbit rolled its eyes at him. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The little rabbit said in a deep voice, "On the surface, he's alone. But do you know if there are others hiding in his spatial divine item?" "It doesn't matter, as long as the Lord of the Divine Kingdom doesn't come in person. I think with our current means, it should be enough to crush everything." Long Chen also spoke. It was a bit sullen to keep hiding like this. It was better to have a big fight. Chapter 38. 78. This, the Feather Emperor hesitated and shook his head. I think it's better not to provoke them. The Blood Ancestor and the little rabbit nodded in agreement. Ahem. Long Chin coughed and looked at the three of them. Although what I'm about to say is a bit disrespectful, I can't help but want to say it. Now that you've been driven out of your homeland, you still don't dare to attack. This seems a bit beneath your status as leaders. The Feather Emperor, the Blood Ancestor, and the little rabbit immediately glared at Long Chin. That I think so too. Aren't you a bit too afraid of the Divine Kingdom? Qin Feiyong said with a dry smile. Brat, who are you looking down on? The Feather Emperor looked at Qin Feiyong angrily. No. I just feel that being so timid is not the way to solve the problem. Qin Feiyong smiled. The Feather Emperor raised his eyebrows. Alas, maybe we're really old. But suddenly the Blood Ancestor shook his head and sighed. The Feather Emperor and the little rabbit couldn't help but look at the Blood Ancestor. Thinking back, we only mastered one ultimacy and dared to fight with the Divine Kingdom. Now, our strength is not what it used to be, but we are still timid. To be honest, we really need to reflect. The Blood Ancestor looked at the two of them and sighed. The Feather Emperor and the little rabbit heard this and fell silent for a while. They couldn't help but smile bitterly. Yes, back then, they had the courage to face the experts of the Divine Kingdom, but now they were like cowards. As Long Chin said, they were the leaders of the Sky Cloud Realm. If even they were like this, could the Sky Cloud Realm still be saved? One couldn't lose their courage. As a leader, one had to shoulder the responsibility of a leader. Phew! The Feather Emperor took a deep breath and looked up at the middle-aged man in golden armor. His eyes instantly became sharp, and he said, We can't always live in their shadow. Yes, today is different from the past. We're not weak now. The Blood Ancestor nodded. His previous fear had disappeared, and his gaze was as sharp as a blade. Little Rabbit glanced at the two people and said with a chuckle, Either way, we'll have to face them sooner or later. Then let's go all out and fight. Qin Feiyong and Long Chin looked at each other when they heard this. Their dormant fighting spirit was gradually awakened. However, Feiyong, don't be in a rush to attack. Furthermore, you must conceal your purple-gold dragon bloodline power properly. Unless absolutely necessary, you must not expose it. Feather Emperor looked at Qin Feiyong and instructed. We do need to pay attention to this. First of all, the Master of the Divine Kingdom doesn't know that the Princess of the Divine Kingdom and the Human Emperor already have a child. Given the pride of the ruler of the Divine Kingdom, once he learns of this, he will definitely be furious. Secondly, you are our trump card. We have to save you for the crucial moment. The little rabbit nodded. Then what's the point? Qin Feiyong was displeased. The Blood Ancestor said angrily, You think this is a game? This is war, not a joke. You have to listen to us. Okay. I'll listen. Qin Feiyong was helpless. The little rabbit looked at Long Chen and said, And you? Although we don't know how strong you are, as the son of the ice dragon, you certainly don't lack powerful trump cards. Therefore, we also hope that you can preserve your strength for the time being. Can I take this as your concern for me? Long Chen was stunned and asked with a smile. Up to you. The little rabbit waved her paw. The Feather Emperor shook his head and smiled. He looked at Long Chin and said, Now, regardless of our identities, we are all members of the Sky Cloud Realm. Young people like you are the hope of the future. Therefore, you have to work hard. Long Chen looked at the Feather Emperor, the Blood Ancestor, and the little rabbit. Suddenly, he was somewhat envious of Qin Feiyong. No matter what kind of environment he was in, there would always be a group of elders who cared about him. This kind of warmth was irreplaceable by anything. If only his father could care about him like this, how good would that be? The Feather Emperor took a few deep breaths and looked up at the middle-aged man in golden armor. He sneered and said, Are you waiting for us? Watch how we catch you off guard. Let's go." The little rabbit immediately led the 4 people and descended in the sky above the sky cloud realm. Boom! The blood ancestor immediately attacked. The death law, time law, and slaughter law's ultimate profoundness instantly appeared. The terrifying aura shattered the sky and stirred the sea for hundreds of millions of miles. The middle-aged man in golden armor was startled. He immediately opened his eyes and looked up. When he saw Qin Feiyang and the others, his thick black eyebrows suddenly raised. Die! The blood ancestor grinned hideously. Generally speaking, such a sudden attack would definitely cause one to panic and be unable to react in time. However, the middle-aged man in golden armor was calm. There was even a trace of disdain in his eyes. Just as the 3 ultimate profoundness arrived in front of the middle-aged man in golden armor, a terrifying divine power surged out from the middle-aged man's body. Following closely, lightning emerged one after another. This aura, be careful, it's the aura of the Thunder Battle armor. Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank. As expected, the next moment, a purple gold battle armor appeared on the middle-aged man's body. Lightning swept in all directions. It was the thunder battle armor of the red-haired old man. Is this the armor of the mid-level sovereign divine weapon that you mentioned? The Feather Emperor was surprised. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and said in a deep voice, "The thunder battle armor is on this person. The thunder battle axe might also be in his hands. You must be careful." As he spoke, the 3 ultimate profoundness with monstrous power drowned the middle-aged man in golden armor. Even the indestructible Sky Cloud Island was instantly shattered. The surrounding waves surged, covering the sky and the sun. I was worried about not being able to find you. I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to me. The middle-aged man in golden armor's voice sounded in the dust. Clang! Accompanied by a deafening sound, a sharp light emerged and turned into a wave, tearing the sky and splitting the earth as it charged toward the blood ancestor. It is indeed on him. Retreat! Qin Feiyang's expression changed as he retreated with lightning speed. The blood ancestor, Long Chun, the Feather Emperor, and the little rabbit didn't dare to be negligent. They were extremely annoyed. They didn't expect to encounter 2 mid-level sovereign divine weapons. 2 mid-level sovereign divine weapons are not to be trifled with. Celestial Sword, go help. Long Chen whispered. Don't expose Celestial Sword yet. Qin Feiyang stopped Long Chen and shook his head. Celestial Sword was also a mid-level sovereign divine weapon. It could be said that it was the trump card of the Sky Cloud realm. It had to be saved at the critical moment to surprise the enemy with a fatal blow. Long Chen turned and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Don't worry. Now, Fire Dance, Azure Dragon, and the Sea Lion Emperor are all in the Black Tortoise realm. We have enough strength to contend with these 2 mid-level sovereign divine weapons. Qin Feiyang said. At the same time, in the Black Tortoise realm, above the Devil's Land, Qin Feiyang's voice sounded. Fire Dance, Senior Azure Dragon. Yun Ziang, lend me your sovereign divine weapons. Hearing this voice, everyone who was in seclusion opened their eyes. What was going on? He wanted to borrow their sovereign divine weapons. Could it be Qin Feiyang had already killed his way back to the Sky Cloud realm? Thinking of this, everyone's face sank. They immediately took out their respective sovereign divine weapons. Outside, terrifying sharpness rolled in. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the sovereign divine weapons of the land of buried gods, including the yin-yang mirror and Princess Hoofing's sovereign divine weapon appeared. Why did he only summon the land of buried gods and Princess Hoofing's sovereign divine weapon? This was because when they fought with the blood-red clothed old man last time, only these sovereign divine weapons appeared. The divine kingdom's foundation was unfathomable. If they could hide their strength, they would do so. In short, they couldn't expose their full strength to the divine kingdom too early. When the blood ancestor saw the sovereign divine weapons appear, he immediately took out the demon vanquishing staff and the illusory demon orb. Although the sovereign divine weapons had been damaged when they fought with the red-haired old man, they weren't too serious. Thus, they had been repaired in the Black Tortoise realm for the past few years. The land of buried gods had 8 sovereign divine weapons. Princess Huifeng had 11 sovereign divine weapons. In addition to the yin-yang mirror, the illusory demon orb, and the demon vanquishing staff, there were a total of 21 sovereign divine weapons. The blood ancestor waved his hand, and the 21 sovereign divine weapons awakened. A terrifying aura swept out in all directions, and the sharpness that surged toward them instantly shattered the void. Just as Old Wu said, there are quite a few sovereign divine weapons. But that's all. This time, I won't give you any chance to turn the tables. After all, this isn't a training trip. The golden-armored, middle-aged man stepped into the air. Wearing thunder armor and holding a thunder axe, he looked like a god. He looked at the yin-yang mirror and the sovereign divine weapons with disdain in his eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, a sword light swept out from his body. As soon as this sword light appeared, heaven and earth trembled. This is the blood ancestor, the little rabbit, and the feather emperor were shocked. This is the sword light we were talking about, Qin Feiyang said in a low voice. According to the Divine Kingdom's princess, this sword light came from the Divine Kingdom's sovereign divine weapon. And the Divine Kingdom's sovereign divine weapon was a high-grade sovereign divine weapon. He used his most terrifying trump card right off the bat. It seemed like this person was right. The Divine Kingdom hadn't come to train the younger generation. Instead, they had come to kill them. All of this was because the princess of the Divine Kingdom had fallen in love with the human emperor and betrayed the Divine Kingdom. Die! The golden-armored, middle-aged man waved his hand, and the sword light annihilated the sky as it attacked the yin-yang mirror and the other sovereign divine weapons. Although the sovereign divine weapons had been fully awakened, they seemed particularly small in the face of this sword light. Just as the sword light collided with the sovereign divine weapons, the golden-armored, middle-aged man smiled coldly. With the thunder axe in his hand, he instantly charged in front of Qin Feiyang and the others. Retreat! The feather emperor roared, looking very flustered. But in fact, whether it was the feather emperor or Qin Feiyang and the others, they were extremely calm. Their panicked appearance was just an act. It was to make the golden-armored, middle-aged man think that they were at the end of their rope. Without these sovereign divine weapons, let's see how you fight back. The golden-armored, middle-aged man sneered and attacked with a thunder axe. Seeing that Qin Feiyang and the others were about to die, the blood ancestor suddenly laughed and said, "Do you think we only have these sovereign divine weapons? If we only have these sovereign divine weapons, do you think we would dare to return to the Sky Cloud realm?" As his voice fell, the sword of Thanatos and the other sovereign divine weapons that had been waiting in the Black Tortoise realm all attacked in an instant. There were more than 20 sovereign divine weapons. It crushed everything in its path. What? The golden-armored, middle-aged man's body stiffened. He had thought that as long as the sword light restrained the yin-yang mirror and the other sovereign divine weapons, the thunder axe would be able to easily kill these people. But he had never imagined that the other party would have so many sovereign divine weapons. Sorry, I have something to do today, so I can only update 2 chapters. Chapter 3879. He was completely caught off guard. More than 20 sovereign divine weapons attacked. The thunder battle axe shattered on the spot. The terrifying aura drowned the golden-armored man. The thunder battle armor on his body also cracked. His body was dripping with blood in an instant. Kill him and take the Thunder Battle Axe and Thunder Battle Armor. The Blood Ancestor's eyes lit up. If he could subdue these two mid-level sovereign divine weapons, the strength of the Sky Cloud realm would undoubtedly skyrocket. You overestimate yourself. When the golden-armored man heard the Blood Ancestor's words, he couldn't help but laugh contemptuously. Clang! A change occurred. Accompanied by a loud noise, a monstrous sharpness surged out and swept across the sky. The moment this sharpness appeared, Qin Feiyang and the others felt a fatal crisis. The next moment, a giant sword appeared. This sword was 3 meters long and as wide as an adult's palm. It was purple gold in color, and a purple gold divine dragon was clinging to it. The golden-armored man grabbed the giant sword and slashed it in the air. Thousands of sword lights appeared, containing an indestructible power. The sword of death and the other sovereign divine weapons were shattered. How is this possible? Not to mention the sovereign divine weapons. Even Qin Feiyang and the others couldn't help but shudder in fear. A total of more than 20 sovereign divine weapons were all damaged in an instant. What level of sovereign divine weapon was this giant sword? Boom! After the yin-yang mirror and the other sovereign divine weapons shattered the sword chi, they shouted, "Run!" Long Chen quivered, held the badge in his hand, and quickly opened a space-time passage. Quick! No one dared to delay. Whether it was Qin Feiyang and the others or the sovereign divine weapons, they immediately rushed into the space-time passage. Still want to run? The golden-armored man sneered and slashed the passage with his sword. The passage collapsed immediately. Qin Feiyang and the others, along with the sovereign divine weapons, fell out of the space-time passage. They all looked extremely miserable. No one can escape. The golden-armored man was like a god of death. The purple gold giant sword swept toward Qin Feiyang and the others. At this moment, Qin Feiyang and the others, as well as the sovereign's divine weapons, sensed the aura of death. Without any hesitation, they turned around and fled. Do you know what it means to have no way out? The golden-armored middle-aged man laughed out loud. The giant sword's godly might surged, sweeping up the golden-armored middle-aged man and chasing after Qin Feiyang and the others. Its speed was many times faster. Is this the divine weapon of the sovereign of the divine kingdom? Long Chen's gaze was solemn. This huge sword's power had already far surpassed a middle-class dominator weapon. If it wasn't a high-class dominator weapon, then what was it? Just how powerful is a high-grade dominator weapon? Qin Feiyang frowned. I don't know. The Blood Ancestor, the Feather Emperor, and the little rabbit shook their heads. This was the first time they had seen a sovereign weapon of this level. Long Qin said, I remember Father saying before that a high-class Dominator Divine weapon requires 10 mid-class Dominator Divine weapons to contend against it. What? Only 10 mid-level Dominator Divine weapons can contend against it. Qin Feiyang and the others were dumbfounded. According to this calculation, wouldn't they need at least 100 low-class Dominator Divine weapons to contend against a high-class Dominator Divine weapon? Because 10 low-class Dominator Divine weapons could contend against 1 mid-class Dominator Divine weapon, and 10 mid-class Dominator Divine weapons were naturally equal to 100 low-class Dominator Divine weapons. 100 low-class Dominator Divine weapons. Even if all the Dominator Divine weapons in the Sky Cloud realm were added together, they still wouldn't be able to gather that many. Brother Qin, it seems like we still need you to make a move. Long Qin smiled bitterly. He didn't expect the Divine Kingdom to take out such a terrifying trump card right from the start. 2 mid-class Dominator Divine weapons and 1 high-class Dominator Divine weapon. For the Sky Cloud realm, it was simply a one-sided situation. Although Long Qin also had the Heavenly God Sword as a trump card, it seemed to have lost its effect against the giant sword. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. He suddenly stopped and turned to look at the golden-armored, middle-aged man. You know you can't escape, so you've given up? The golden-armored, middle-aged man also stopped and looked at them mockingly. Do you have to make a scene like this? Qin Feiyang didn't answer, but asked instead. The golden-armored, middle-aged man was stunned. Long Qin couldn't help but turn to look at Qin Feiyang. There was a trace of suspicion in his eyes. What was this guy thinking to ask such a question? The Sky Cloud realm isn't in the wrong. It's your divine kingdom that's in the wrong. Back then, the younger generation of your divine kingdom came to the Sky Cloud realm and used it as a training ground. You harmed innocent creatures and even wanted to harm the underworld king, hell, and other continents. Have you ever thought about how much harm this will bring to us? Qin Feiyang frowned. Are you trying to reason with me? The golden-armored, middle-aged man looked at Qin Feiyang strangely. I just want you to stop invading the Sky Cloud realm and other continents. Otherwise, you'll harm innocent creatures and give us a chance. Qin Feiyang sighed. Hearing these words, Feather Emperor, Little Rabbit, and Blood Ancestor couldn't help but turn to look at Qin Feiyang. Give each other a chance. The meaning of these words was quite obvious. Qin Feiyang wanted to reconcile with the divine kingdom. Thinking about it, it made sense. Although Qin Feiyang had already stated that he would always stand on the side of the Sky Cloud realm, the divine kingdom was the home of the divine kingdom's princess after all. Moreover, Qin Feiyang didn't have to think for himself, but he had to think for Qin Batian. Qin Batian was the son of the human emperor and the divine kingdom's princess. The king of the divine kingdom was Qin Batian's grandfather. Grandson, grandfather, these were the closest people to him. If possible, no one wished for them to completely fall out with each other. They were originally a family. Why bother? Everyone should be friendly and give each other a chance to get along. Wasn't that good? Sigh. The Feather Emperor sighed. He could understand Qin Feiyang's mood, because Qin Feiyang had always been a person who valued kinship. However, would the divine kingdom? Would the high and mighty king of the divine kingdom value kinship? He was afraid that Qin Feiyang's painstaking efforts would only be met with merciless ridicule and contempt. Sure enough, the middle-aged man in golden armor had a disdainful look on his face. He sneered and said, You ants are qualified to talk about opportunities with the divine kingdom? It's ridiculous. Everything in the world is equal. Even if it's just an ant, it still has survival value. We don't deny the power of the divine kingdom, but no matter how strong you are still the same as us. You are just a speck of dust in this world, so I really can't see how you are superior to us. I also don't know where your sense of superiority comes from. Qin Feiyang frowned. Why did these people feel that they were superior? Strength? Status? No matter how strong they were or how high their status was, could they be higher than the sky? Hearing these words, the middle-aged man in golden armor looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze. His eyes were as if he was looking at a fool. How could a weak person talk about equality and value in front of a strong person? Was there something wrong with his brain? Whoosh! At this time, accompanied by the sound of the air breaking, more than a dozen people came through the air. They were the companions of the middle-aged man in golden armor. They were hiding in various places. When they heard the commotion, they immediately rushed over. More than a dozen people surrounded them. Their auras were unfathomable. When they saw the sovereign divine weapons beside Qin Feiyang and the others, their pupils shrank. There were so many sovereign divine weapons. It seemed that they had underestimated the strength of the Sky Cloud realm. A middle-aged woman looked at the middle-aged man in golden armor suspiciously and asked, Why didn't you attack? I met a very interesting person, so we chatted for a while. The middle-aged man in golden armor smiled playfully. Interesting person. More than a dozen people were taken aback. They looked at Qin Feiyang and the others. The middle-aged man in golden armor pointed at Qin Feiyang and joked. It's this kid who talked to me about qualifications, fairness, and value. He even asked us to stop and give each other a chance. The dozen people were stunned and looked at Qin Feiyang strangely. Kid, what chance are you talking about? One of the old men in black was curious. Qin Feiyang looked around at everyone and said to the old man in black, Give peace to the Sky Cloud realm and give you a chance to be human again. Give us a chance to be human again. The group of people looked at each other. What an idiot. Because if he wasn't a fool, why would he say such shameless words in front of them? Feiyang, they won't understand your good intentions. The Feather Emperor sighed. Yes, don't waste your energy. Some people just won't cry until they are in the coffin. The Blood Ancestor glanced at the group of people, his eyes flashing with killing intent. Ha! You ants are really getting more and more interesting. The group of people laughed mercilessly. Looking at these faces, Qin Feiyang's heart was full of self-mockery. For such arrogant people, he actually had a trace of illusion? How ridiculous. Can't reason with them. Okay, then let's solve it with fists. In his eyes, a shocking murderous intent instantly appeared. Immediately, Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the major sovereign weapons entered the black tortoise realm one after another. The reason for that was because the ruler divine weapons had already been severely damaged. They were no longer of any help. Not to mention now, there is no need for the help of these sovereign weapons. Yo, you can't reason with them, so you're starting to get angry. Don't. We just arrived and haven't heard enough. Continue, it's quite interesting. The middle-aged woman laughed sarcastically. The other dozen people also had a playful smile on their faces. Looking at these faces, not to mention the Feather Emperor, the Blood Ancestor, the little rabbit, even Long Chen was angry. Who are you looking down on? Do you really think that the Sky Cloud realm is a place where you can behave atrociously? Long Chen looked at Qin Feiyang fiercely and said, Brother Qin, if you don't kill them, I will break off with you. Break off? The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched, and he said speechlessly, I don't seem to have much friendship with you, but these people really need to be taught a lesson. The Feather Emperor's eyes flashed, looking at Qin Feiyang, and said loudly, Since you don't like them, then go and ask Qin Xiaotian to come out and teach them a lesson. Qin Xiaotian? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Long Chen, the Feather Emperor, and the little rabbit couldn't help but look at the Blood Ancestor suspiciously. Was there such a person here? To open the Eye of Heaven, you must first open the purple gold dragon soul. Once you open the purple gold dragon soul, the people of the Divine Kingdom will definitely think that you are the descendant of the human emperor and the Divine Kingdom's princess. When this matter reaches the ears of the master of the Divine Kingdom, he will definitely be furious. At that time, you may become the most important target in their eyes. We still don't know the true strength of the Divine Kingdom, so for your safety, we have to hide it for now. The Blood Ancestor secretly explained. Chapter 3880. That makes sense. The Feather Emperor and the little rabbit nodded. Is that necessary? Long Qin expressed his doubts. Anyway, Qin Feiyang's identity would be exposed sooner or later. Yes. Besides, it won't take much effort. You can go to the Black Tortoise realm and change your appearance. Besides, don't you think it will be fun? The Blood Ancestor's words were full of ridicule. Fun? Qin Feiyang and Long Chen were suspicious. That's right. We will fabricate a character called Qin Xiaotian. At that time, wouldn't it be fun to watch them search everywhere and hunt down this Qin Xiaotian that we made up? The Blood Ancestor laughed secretly. The corners of Qin Feiyang and Long Chen's mouths twitched. This little old man was really bad. However, this wouldn't work. After all, the people of the Sky Cloud realm now knew that the person with the purple-gold dragon blood was Qin Feiyang, not Qin Xiaotian. At that time, the people of the Divine Kingdom would casually ask around and find out. I know your concerns, but this is also very simple. Now that the people of the Sky Cloud realm have united, we will go and tell them, and they will definitely cooperate with us. The Blood Ancestor said secretly. Okay, we will listen to you. Qin Feiyang nodded and entered the Black Tortoise realm. What the hell? The middle-aged man in golden armor and the others looked at the Blood Ancestor and the others suspiciously. Qin Xiaotian? Who was this person? He actually said that he was going to ask this person to come out and deal with them? Was this person very strong? The dozen people were not in a hurry to make a move, because they had the sovereign divine weapon of the Divine Kingdom. They were full of confidence that no matter what tricks Qin Feiyang and the others played, it would be useless. On the contrary, they were looking forward to the person that Qin Feiyang and the others had fabricated. Boom! Soon, a terrifying, murderous aura emerged. The next moment, a young man in a blood-red robe appeared. It was Qin Feiyang, but now his temperament was completely different from before. His blood-red hair fluttered wildly while his entire body was filled with a baleful and vicious aura that couldn't be dispersed. He was like the god of death that had returned from hell. Furthermore, he was wearing a blood-red mask. This mask was condensed from the blood of the Western region's Blood Sea, and its murderous aura was overwhelming. Greetings, Lord Qin Xiaotian. The Feather Emperor, Little Rabbit, and Ancestor, Devil, looked at each other and bowed. Ugh! Qin Feiyang looked at the three of them in astonishment. Were they also three actors? Long Qin was also quite speechless. He cleared his throat and also looked at Qin Feiyang, respectfully saying, "Greetings, sir." Qin Feiyang had no choice but to cooperate. He said coldly, "No need to be so polite. I just heard from Qin Feiyang that someone wants to kill you?" "Yes." "It's these people. They are from the Divine Kingdom. Just like last time, they are preparing to invade our Sky Cloud realm." The Blood Ancestor pointed at the golden-armored, middle-aged man and roared angrily. "Divine Kingdom, you are going too far." Qin Feiyang looked at the golden-armored middle-aged man and the others and shouted. His voice also changed. It was loud and deafening, full of energy, and carried the majesty of a superior. "You are the Qin Xiaotian they were talking about?" The golden-armored, middle-aged man sized up Qin Feiyang. "That's me. I have long heard that the Divine Kingdom is very strong. Now I really want to see it for myself." Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. With a thought, the 3,000 clones were activated. Although the 3,000 clones didn't have masks, their facial features were very blurry. Clones? The golden-armored, middle-aged man and the others were stunned. This was the so-called strong expert? That was too ridiculous. Did he think that he could scare them by creating a group of clones? But at the same time, the purple-gold giant sword had a trace of doubt in its heart. This didn't seem to be a clone. I thought that the people of the Divine Kingdom were knowledgeable. It turns out that you are just a group of frogs at the bottom of a well. Qin Feiyang's blood-red eyes were full of disdain. The 3,000 clones stood behind Qin Feiyang, each of them exuding a terrifying aura. Blood Ancestor. Qin Feiyang suddenly looked at the Blood Ancestor. The Blood Ancestor understood and instantly activated the ultimate mysteries of the Time Law and Death Law. "Now, I will let you broaden your horizons." Qin Feiyang sneered. "Roar!" Accompanied by deafening dragon roars, 3,000 purple-gold dragon souls roared out. "What?" Seeing this scene, the disdain on the golden-armored middle-aged man and the others' faces suddenly froze. Purple-gold dragon souls. Their faces were instantly filled with disbelief. How could these ants from a low-level civilization activate the purple-gold dragon souls? One had to know. Purple gold dragon souls were rare even in the divine kingdom. Eye of Heaven, activate! The next moment, an even more shocking scene appeared. The 3,000 clones roared in unison, and the purple gold dragon soul's glabella immediately split open, revealing a third eye. This was the Eye of Heaven. Not only did they activate the purple gold dragon souls, but they also activated the Eye of Heaven. This is impossible. The golden-armored middle-aged man and the others shook their heads. What was even more unbelievable was that these thousands of clones could activate their battle souls. You also know about the Eye of Heaven? It seems that the divine kingdom is not so high and mighty. Qin Feiyang's eyes were full of disdain. The 3,000 clones looked at each other and activated the Eye of Heaven. The golden-armored middle-aged man and the others were dumbfounded. What the hell was going on? Kill him quickly! The giant sword suddenly shouted. The golden-armored, middle-aged man was shocked. The giant sword said in a deep voice, "He is not a clone, but 3,000 clones." What? 3,000 clones? The expressions of the dozen people changed immediately. At the same time, Qin Feiyang and Long Chen were also stunned. How could these people know 3,000 clones? Quick, otherwise we will be in big trouble. When the middle-aged woman came back to her senses, she looked at the golden-armored middle-aged man and shouted. It seemed that not only did they know about the 3,000 clones, but they also knew the lethality of the clones. The golden-armored middle-aged man shuddered and charged toward Qin Feiyang with the giant sword. Quick, the blood ancestor urged. However, at this moment, Qin Feiyang was facing a huge crisis. Because the Eye of Heaven could not quickly replicate the blood ancestor's ultimate meaning, it was quite slow, just like when he fought with the Queen of Flame last time. He originally thought that it was slow because he himself had not mastered the ultimate meaning. In other words, if he had mastered the ultimate meaning, the replication speed would definitely be faster. Therefore, whether it was Qin Feiyang, Long Chen, or the blood ancestor, they were all full of confidence. But they never expected that it would still be slow. Was this the upper limit of the Eye of Heaven? Don't panic. Although the speed is still so slow, the environment we are in now is different. You couldn't enter the Black Tortoise realm in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, but now you can. The blood ancestor reminded. That's right. 5,000 years in the Black Tortoise realm. As long as they entered the Black Tortoise realm. Even if it took a day to replicate, it would only take a blink of an eye outside. Moreover, to replicate the ultimate meaning, it would not take a day at all. Qin Feiyang suddenly came to a realization and immediately led everyone and the 3,000 clones into the Black Tortoise realm. And the golden-armored middle-aged man raised his eyebrows and his divine sense surged out, instantly capturing the Black Tortoise realm in the void. Shatter his spatial divine item. They all thought that this was just a spatial divine item. Little did they know that they were facing a real world. The purple gold giant sword, with a monstrous sharpness, charged toward the Black Tortoise realm. What are you doing? But at this moment, a shout rang out, and a woman around 30 years old appeared out of thin air, blocking the Black Tortoise realm. She was wearing a purple gold dress, and her soft long hair was tied up high, looking graceful and luxurious. Princess! The golden-armored middle-aged man and the others trembled. The giant sword also stopped in the void. That's right. She was the princess of the divine kingdom. During these years in the Black Tortoise realm, she had also reconstructed her physical body, and her current appearance was her human form. The princess of the divine kingdom glanced at the golden-armored middle-aged man and the others, then looked at the giant sword and smiled. Dragon God Sword, I thought that after so many years, you had already forgotten me. This sovereign watched you grow up. How could this sovereign forget you? The Dragon God Sword sighed, his voice filled with vicissitudes of life. The princess of the divine kingdom sighed. I should have disappointed you. You shouldn't ask me this. You should ask your father. Ask the people of the divine kingdom if they were disappointed. The dragon god sword shouted. His tone was full of anger. I'm sorry, but I didn't do anything wrong. I just want to be with the person I like. If my father didn't object back then, why would I leave the divine kingdom? Go back. I beg you, don't hurt the sky cloud realm anymore. The princess of the divine kingdom begged. When Qin Feiyang looked for Yun Ziang and the others to get the sovereign divine weapon, she had already woken up. Just a while ago, when Qin Feiyang and the others returned to the Black Tortoise realm, she asked Qin Feiyang to send her out. Qin Feiyang didn't agree at first, but he couldn't dissuade this old ancestor, so he could only send her out. The princess of the divine kingdom came out to persuade the dragon god sword, the golden-armored middle-aged man, and the others. After all, these were her people. The dragon god was her father's sovereign divine weapon, and he had taken care of her since she was young. She didn't want to see Qin Feiyang and the others injured, and she couldn't bear to see the dragon god's sword and her people die. Although she knew that even if she came out, she might not be able to persuade the dragon god's sword, the golden-armored middle-aged man, and the others, but she still wanted to try. Beg us? Back in the divine kingdom, you didn't beg me because you were arrogant and didn't want to beg others. But now, for these irrelevant outsiders, you actually lowered your head and begged me? When the dragon god's sword heard this, he was furious. The princess of the divine kingdom sighed. As long as you can leave and don't hurt the people of the sky cloud realm, I will kneel down. Then kneel before me, because you really should kneel down and apologize for what you have done and repent. The dragon god's sword was furious. The golden-armored middle-aged man and the others were also disappointed. It had been so many years, but they didn't expect the princess to be so stubborn. The princess of the divine kingdom looked at the dragon god's sword, the golden-armored middle-aged man, and the others, and said with a smile, If I can let you leave by kneeling, then what's the harm in kneeling? After saying that, she knelt in the void. Chapter 3. Release at 10. Chapter 3881. Princess, you can't. An old man's expression changed slightly as he hurriedly ran toward the princess of the divine kingdom. Get out of my way. Make her kneel. The divine dragon sword shouted. The old man's body trembled as he quickly stopped. He looked at the divine dragon sword in fear and said anxiously, She's a princess. How can she kneel to us? She betrayed her family, her people, and the people of the divine kingdom. She's no longer the princess of the divine kingdom. She's a sinner. The divine dragon sword snorted. Hearing this, the old man looked at the princess of the divine kingdom again and couldn't help but sigh. Although he really wanted to help, he really didn't know what to say in the face of the facts in front of him. Boom! Just as the princess of the divine kingdom was about to kneel, Qin Feiyang appeared with his 3,000 clones. 5,000 years in one day. The 3,000 clones had already replicated the two ultimate intents of the blood ancestor in the Black Tortoise realm. The reason he hadn't come out was actually because Qin Feiyang also hoped that the princess of the divine kingdom could persuade the divine dragon sword and the middle-aged man to retreat. However, after watching for so long, not only was the princess of the divine kingdom not persuaded to retreat, but she was even forced to kneel? How could he tolerate this? So he really did appear with his 3,000 clones to stop the princess of the divine kingdom. Leave it to me. The princess of the divine kingdom looked at Qin Feiyang with a hint of pleading in her eyes. It's useless. Even if you really kneel, they won't retreat. Because in their eyes, you've already betrayed them. You should leave this matter to me. Qin Feiyang sighed. But the princess of the divine kingdom was extremely anxious. I know that you don't want any of us to be injured, but there are some things that we must face. Qin Feiyang then grabbed the princess of the divine kingdom and retreated to the side. Looking at the 3,000 clones, his blood-red eyes flashed coldly as he shouted, "Kill them!" Boom! The 3,000 clones cackled. 6,000 ultimates crazily attacked the divine dragon sword, the middle-aged man in golden armor, and the others. Bastard! We'll settle this score another day. The divine dragon's sword roared and immediately swept up the golden-armored middle-aged man and the others and flew away. This was not one of the 6 ultimate profound meanings, nor were they the ultimate profundities of the 6,000 ordinary laws. These were the ultimate profundities of a total of 6,000 ultimate laws of nature. The ultimate profundity of each ultimate law was equivalent to a sovereign weapon. In other words, now there were 6,000 sovereign weapons. Even though the divine dragon sword was a high-grade dominator divine weapon, it could only flee in the face of such a terrifying lineup. Where are you going? The 3,000 clones seemed to have expected this. They instantly spread out and surrounded the divine dragon sword, the middle-aged man in golden armor, and the others. The 6,000 ultimate profound surged forward. Rumble. Crack. A series of loud blasts took place. What followed was a series of painful screams. The golden-armored, middle-aged man and his men were instantly killed. Not to mention them, even the divine dragon sword could not withstand the aura of 6,000 ultimate profound meanings. A sense of despair shrouded their hearts. The princess of the divine kingdom could not bear to see this scene. She looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Qin, ancestor, I'm Qin Shaotian now." Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. The princess of the divine kingdom was stunned and said anxiously, "Don't care what you're called. For my sake, let them go." "Let them go?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "Yes." The princess of the divine kingdom nodded. Qin Feiyang said, "But this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Please understand my feelings. Although I've left the divine kingdom, I'm still a citizen of the divine kingdom. Give me some time and give them some time. I believe that I can persuade them." The princess of the divine kingdom said, Qin Feiyang looked at the pleading ancestor and then at the destroyed divine dragon sword and the middle-aged man in golden armor. His face was full of struggle. If he let the divine dragon sword and the middle-aged man in golden armor go, it would be like letting a tiger return to the mountain. But he could not ignore the ancestor's pleading. What should he do? If you kill them now and destroy the divine dragon sword, you will definitely enrage my father. You've activated 3,000 incarnations and the Eye of Heaven. It's indeed very powerful. But the Feather Emperor should not have told you that the 3,000 incarnations are actually from the divine kingdom. The princess of the divine kingdom said, "What? The 3,000 incarnations are from the divine kingdom?" Qin Feiyang was shocked. "That's right." The princess of the divine kingdom nodded. "No wonder they know the 3,000 incarnations." Qin Feiyang murmured. "The 3,000 incarnations are a secret of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan. It means that apart from the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan, no one is qualified to cultivate it. Moreover, even in the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan, only the direct descendants can cultivate it. I don't know the current situation, but in the past there were 3 people who cultivated the 3,000 incarnations. The first was my father, the second was me, and the third was my elder brother. You can imagine, if you really kill them now and destroy the divine dragon sword and enrage my father and elder brother will personally descend on the Sky Cloud realm. Can you imagine what kind of crisis the Sky Cloud realm will face?" The princess of the divine kingdom said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyang's face turned pale when he heard this. Who knew the power of the 3,000 incarnations better than him? If the father and elder brother of the princess of the divine kingdom really descended, it would be a catastrophe for the sky cloud realm. Moreover, the number of people in the divine kingdom who have mastered the ultimate law is far more than the sky cloud realm. Even if my father and elder brother do not come personally, as long as they send enough experts, they can kill you. The princess of the divine kingdom said in a deep voice. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he made a prompt decision and nodded to the 3,000 incarnations. The 3,000 incarnations waved their hands, and the ultimate law instantly dissipated. At this moment, the divine dragon's sword had been shattered. Even more than half of its original body had been obliterated. The thunder battle armor and thunder battle axe that were already broken were even more tragic. As for the middle-aged man in golden armor and the others, they were only left with the last trace of their souls. This was still because of the protection of the divine dragon sword. Otherwise, they would have been destroyed. Qin Feiyang looked at the divine dragon sword, and a light flashed in his eyes. He said coldly, "For the sake of your princess, I can let you go, but I have a condition." Condition? The divine dragon sword's heart suddenly surged with anger. "Who do you think you are to be qualified to negotiate with me?" However, now it didn't dare to say it out loud. The princess of the divine kingdom couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang in confusion. What was this kid up to again? Qin Feiyang sneered. "If you don't agree, then even if the heavenly king comes down, he won't be able to save you today." He had already thought about it. Although the Lord of the divine kingdom also had 3,000 incarnations, he actually had the upper hand, because he still had the eye of heaven. Of course, he also couldn't feel confident that he could defeat the divine kingdom just because he had the eye of heaven. After all, as the princess of the divine kingdom said, the divine kingdom still had a large number of experts who had mastered the ultimate profound of the strongest law. If the divine kingdom were to come out in full force, he wouldn't be able to do it alone. So now he had to solve this problem from the root. What condition? Suddenly, a dignified yet ethereal voice sounded. "Father," the princess of the divine kingdom trembled. "What? The Lord of the divine kingdom?" Qin Feiyang's expression changed as he glanced around. However, as far as the eye could see, there was no one at all. Swish! Suddenly, a light shadow swept out from the broken sword body of the dragon god's sword and floated in the void in front of Qin Feiyang. It was a blurry and almost transparent figure. Even so, it was as if the ruler of heaven and earth had descended. The void, the sky, and the sea here were all trembling. "Greetings, father." The princess of the divine kingdom looked at the figure with tears in her eyes. This was her biological father. How could she not miss him after not seeing him for so many years? Ah! The Lord of the divine kingdom looked at the princess of the divine kingdom for a long time and sighed deeply. "I thought you had lived a happy life in the sky cloud realm all these years, but in the end, you have been sealed until now. Is this the life you want?" As a father, how could he not miss his children? Although this daughter betrayed him and the divine kingdom, blood was thicker than water. Therefore, this time when he came to the sky cloud realm and learned that his daughter was sealed in the land of buried gods, he was both distressed and angry. It could be said that his heart was suffering. "The life I want," the princess of the divine kingdom smiled sadly and shook her head. "My husband is dead. The life I want has been destroyed, but I don't regret it." "The human emperor is dead?" The Lord of the divine kingdom was stunned. "Yes." The princess of the divine kingdom nodded. "How did he die?" The Lord of the divine kingdom was suspicious. "He was attacked by Feng Ho, the Qilin master and the Dragon King. Back then, I destroyed the gate of the divine kingdom and forced you to leave the sky cloud realm. I thought that from then on, I could live a carefree life with my husband. But I didn't expect that Feng Ho and the other two would attack us while we were weak. Unfortunately, my husband died, and the Feather Emperor was forced to leave the sky cloud realm. He even forced the Blood Ancestor to reincarnate. As for me, Although I escaped, as you can see, I have been sealed until now. The princess of the divine kingdom sighed. On the side, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but clench his hands. Although he already knew these things, at this moment, when he heard the princess of the divine kingdom say it herself, the anger in his heart couldn't be restrained, because he could clearly feel the despair, bitterness, grievance, and grief in the heart of the princess of the divine kingdom. And all of this was caused by Feng Ho, the Dragon King, and the Qilin Master. How ridiculous! You sacrificed so much for the Sky Cloud realm, but in the end, you received such treatment. Now tell me, are you stupid? The Lord of the Divine Kingdom was heartbroken. He thought that his daughter was living a happy life here, but in the end, all she suffered was grievance. Although some people betrayed me. Speaking of this, the princess of the Divine Kingdom looked at Qin Feiyang with a trace of affection on her face and smiled. But there are also people who care about me. I don't regret it. The Lord of the Divine Kingdom couldn't help but size up Qin Feiyang. Suddenly his eyes narrowed and he said in a deep voice, "You actually have the bloodline power of the purple gold dragon blood." Sure enough, blood is thicker than water. Qin Feiyang sighed inwardly. Chapter 3882. Father, please calm down. The princess of the Divine Kingdom turned pale. This was what she was most worried about, because she knew her father's character too well. Once he knew that Qin Feiyang had the purple gold dragon blood, he would definitely destroy Qin Feiyang by hook or by crook, especially when Qin Feiyang was still a human being. For her father, no. For the entire purple gold divine dragon clan, a human possessing the purple gold dragon blood was a humiliation to the purple gold divine dragon. The remnant souls of the dragon god's sword and the middle-aged man in golden armor also looked at Qin Feiyang in shock when they heard the words of the king of the divine kingdom, the bloodline power of the purple gold dragon blood. Didn't this mean that this person was the son of the princess and the human emperor? Don't worry. Qin Feiyang comforted the princess of the divine kingdom. He also clearly felt the murderous intent of the king of the divine kingdom. However, it was useless to panic now. He could only act according to the situation. The king of the divine kingdom looked at the princess of the divine kingdom and asked, "He is the son of you and the human emperor." The princess of the divine kingdom was extremely flustered. Qin Feiyang stood in front of the princess of the divine kingdom, looked straight at the king of the divine kingdom, and said lightly, "Don't worry about my bloodline power. Let's talk about our conditions first. You're not afraid of death?" The king of the divine kingdom looked at Qin Feiyang, and his tone was cold. "Who is not afraid of death? But what's the use of being afraid? If I say I am afraid, will you leave the Sky Cloud realm and return our peace? Let's talk about it later. If I hadn't shown mercy earlier, the divine dragon sword and your subordinates would have been completely annihilated." Qin Feiyang was fearless. The king of the divine kingdom standing in front of him was just a consciousness. He was not a threat at all. "You have guts," as expected of the descendant of the purple gold divine dragon. The king of the divine kingdom laughed, and there seemed to be some appreciation in his words. "Feiyang, you must be careful. Don't be fooled by my father's words. Although he expressed his admiration, it doesn't mean that he won't kill you." The princess of the divine kingdom reminded him secretly. "All right," Qin Feiyang responded. Looking at the king of the divine kingdom, he said calmly, "Actually, my conditions are nothing to you. Why don't you listen to me first?" "All right, go ahead." The king of the divine kingdom nodded. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he said in a deep voice, "The older generation shouldn't interfere. Let the younger generation compete." The king of the divine kingdom was stunned. The princess of the divine kingdom was also stunned. and then her eyes were filled with admiration. That's right. The older generation of the divine kingdom was not only large in number, but each one of them was extremely powerful. If they were to attack, the Sky Cloud realm would have no chance of winning. This was because in the older generation of the Sky Cloud realm, other than the Feather Emperor, the Blood Ancestor, the Little Rabbit, and the Dragon King, none of them were worthy of being mentioned. As for the younger generation, the young geniuses of the divine kingdom would definitely surpass the Sky Cloud realm. However, the Sky Cloud realm had several geniuses, and she believed that these geniuses could definitely suppress the geniuses of the divine kingdom. For example, Qin Feiyang, the Madman, the White-Eyed Wolf, and Fire Dance. Then there were Long Chen, Yun Ziang, Li Feng, the Masked Azura, and so on. After the experience of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, these young geniuses had grown up and were capable of shouldering this heavy responsibility. Especially Long Chen. As the son of the Ice Dragon, he must have amazing means. As for Qin Feiyang, although she didn't know how strong Qin Feiyang was now, since Qin Feiyang dared to put forward this condition, he must be confident. She believed in Qin Feiyang. Seeing that the king of the divine kingdom didn't speak for a long time, Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Don't tell me you don't have confidence in the younger generation of the divine kingdom. King, don't be provoked by his words. With the strength of our divine kingdom, we don't need to play such childish games with them." The golden-armored middle-aged man's remnant soul hurriedly said. Qin Feiyang laughed. "What are you laughing at?" The golden-armored middle-aged man's remnant soul said angrily. Qin Feiyang said, "If you really have the strength, what are you afraid of?" "Afraid? What a joke! I just feel that this is purely a waste of time." The golden-armored middle-aged man sneered. "Don't be so proud. The younger generation of the Sky Cloud realm isn't bad. In the end, it's still unknown who will be the stronger one. If you are really confident, you might as well try. Of course, if you don't want to, I can't force you. But when the time comes, I'm afraid there will be people talking behind your back. Your divine kingdom is now in a state of disarray. Apart from the older generation, there aren't many in the younger generation who can be brought up to the stage." Qin Feiyang pursed his lips with a hint of sarcasm. "You." As soon as these words came out, not only the golden-armored middle-aged men, but even the divine dragon's sword couldn't help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. What I said made no sense. Qin Feiyang laughed. The group was so angry that they were about to go crazy. "Ha ha!" The king of the divine kingdom suddenly laughed and nodded. "Not only do you have courage, but you also have courage and confidence that others don't have. It really suits the nature of our purple gold divine dragon." "Don't keep talking about the purple gold divine dragon. My nature comes from me, and it has nothing to do with your purple gold divine dragon. To be honest, I really don't believe that everyone in your purple gold divine dragon clan is more courageous than others." Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. He said it as if everything he had now was brought about by the purple gold dragon blood. The purple gold dragon blood had indeed brought him a lot of benefits. This was undeniable. But if a person didn't work hard, what was the use of having the best bloodline power? Take the dragons, the Feng people, and the Kirin clan, for example. Their bloodline power wasn't bad, but how many of them had become successful in the end? So, the bloodline power was at most icing on the cake. Fundamentally, one still had to rely on oneself. Hearing this, the king of the divine kingdom raised his eyebrows and said, "Is it so difficult for you to admit the nobility of the purple, gold, dragon blood?" "I never thought that the purple gold dragon blood was so noble. I have never thought that I am superior just because I have the purple gold dragon blood. In my opinion, people who have such thoughts are just deceiving themselves. Don't go too far." Please consider my condition carefully. If you don't want to, we can always hide in the Nether King's hell. Qin Feiyong said lightly, Do you think it's safe to hide in the Nether King's hell? The middle-aged man's remnant soul sneered. Are you trying to scare me? Are you stupid, or do you think I am stupid? If you have the ability to enter the Nether King's hell, would you wait until now? Qin Feiyong sneered. You! The middle-aged man's remnant soul was a little angry from embarrassment. The king of the divine kingdom waved his hand, looked at Qin Feiyong, and said, Well, as you wish. I will give this battlefield to the younger generation of the divine kingdom and the sky cloud realm. Qin Feiyong was overjoyed when he heard this. However, I also have a condition. The king of the divine kingdom said again. Qin Feiyong was stunned and asked suspiciously, What condition? First, bring me the heads of the Dragon King, Feng Ho, and the Kirin clan. Since you dared to steal my daughter, you have to pay the price. Secondly, you only have 1,000 years. If the younger generation of the sky, cloud realm can't suppress the geniuses of the divine kingdom within 1,000 years, then prepare to face destruction. The king of the divine kingdom said. Qin Feiyong frowned. 1,000 years was not enough. However, he could see that this was the limit of the king of the divine kingdom. Okay. After hesitating for a while, Qin Feiyong nodded, looked at the king of the divine kingdom, and said, However, I have another condition. The Dominator divine weapon cannot interfere. This cannot be ignored. Otherwise, when the geniuses of the divine kingdom arrived with the Dragon God sword, would there be any chance of winning? There would never be. Since this is a fair competition, it will naturally test everyone's true ability. Therefore, I agree with this point. The king of the divine kingdom nodded. Then it's a deal. Qin Feiyong was overjoyed. No matter what, they had avoided this catastrophe for the time being. Although it was only 1,000 years, it was better than not even a day. It's a deal. The king of the divine kingdom nodded, and his eyes fell on the princess of the divine kingdom. After pondering for a long time, he sighed and said, The human emperor is dead. What's the point of you staying in the sky cloud realm? Why don't you come back with me now? As long as you sincerely repent, everyone will still accept you. Hearing this, the princess of the divine kingdom's expression stiffened. Qin Feiyong glanced at the princess of the divine kingdom and said, Ancestor, I respect your choice. Who didn't want to return to their homeland? For example, no matter how wonderful the outside world was, Great Qin was always the place he cared about the most in his heart. Therefore, he could understand the princess of the divine kingdom's feelings. If the divine kingdom really wouldn't make things difficult for the princess of the divine kingdom, he would agree with it. The princess of the divine kingdom glanced at Qin Feiyong and then at the king of the divine kingdom. After a long time, she shook her head and said, There are too many things I can't let go of here. I don't want to leave. How many years have you been in the sky cloud realm? If you can't let go of them, then can you let go of the divine kingdom, your family, your people, and your people? The king of the divine kingdom was furious when he heard this. The princess of the divine kingdom fell into silence again. Finally, she gritted her teeth and said, If Father can promise me that you will never invade the sky cloud realm again, I will go back with you now. Are you threatening me? The king of the divine kingdom raised his eyebrows. I dare not. The princess of the divine kingdom quickly lowered her head. Good, very good. The king of the divine kingdom nodded repeatedly. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, Within 3 days I want to see the heads of Dragon King and the others. Also, although I love my daughter very much, I will never allow any human to taint the power of my purple gold divine dragon bloodline. Do you want me to destroy the power of my bloodline? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. If you can destroy the power of your bloodline, that would be for the best, so that I won't have to do it myself. But if you don't want to, then I'm afraid you will have to bear very serious consequences in the end. Do as you see fit." After the king of the divine kingdom finished speaking, his consciousness dissipated directly. Count yourselves lucky this time. The dragon god's sword snorted coldly and immediately took the remnant souls of the middle-aged man in golden armor and the others away at lightning speed. Whoosh! Seeing the dragon god's sword disappear at the end of the sea, the princess of the divine kingdom and Qin Fiang looked at each other and were completely relieved. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.